That wouldn't have been the one.
It would be awesome. Some extra views. And talking about views, can you actually see us, guys? Is the stream online? I guess so. So, hey guys, welcome back to another tournament series, the AQZ Championship Series Week, Season 2, Week 2, sponsored by Man of Games. I'm so happy that we're being back here. And as you can see, I will not be alone today because Keenan joined me as always from the team members. And actually someone from outside our team, Nebula, joined us. It was also recently, or like more like last week, on the AQZ Blitz series. So welcome to both of you.
Hey, I'm happy to be here as always. Thanks for having me, and excited to be joined by Astro Nebula as well. So should be a fun cast, and I think as usual you're going to be in the analyst kitchen for us, Paandy, which is excellent. So of course that means that after our games you will be there to break down all of the coolest things or most interesting stuff to talk about. And that's also a really good opportunity in general for anyone who's not as familiar with the AQZ Championship Series. If you have questions about things that you saw in the game, feel free to let us know in the chat.
Yeah, totally agreeing on that, and it's super amazing to be back here. Right now we will have around, I would say, the 100, almost 140 player. So it's like, again, super cool, because it's like amazing that there's like no 129 players if we're like open to more, but even that would be totally fine, so that the one player can join as well. So for all those who are being here in the stream new and don't know anything about the AQZ series, the short explanation is this is a normal standard constructed BGA hosted tournament. It's a best of 1 around 5 matches, and everyone who's being able to win all 5 rounds will get to invite into a final season that will happening on the actually last Thursday of set 3. And I'm super excited for that. And hello Bird, nice that you're being around here. And yes, we still got like 5 minutes left, so if you want to join in,
I was just going to say, Paandy, during those 5 minutes left, maybe it's good timing to change the name of the stream away from the AQZ Blitz Series Season 1.
Oh, I already thought I did.
Oh, really? Because I'm still seeing it as that.
Actually, I know what happened. I just like wrote the same.
Happens.
I actually deleted it because I was like, hey, wait, I wrote it. Okay, that's crazy. Okay, guys. It's good. Yeah, you know, everyone is going to have a mustache here on Team AQZ. This will be our new logo, the mustache crew. So
I guess so.
I guess so.
That's what it has to be.
But actually, it's super amazing for the week 2. The week 1 was in the kickoff of like 156 players around that, and right now it's also just like super amazing. And yeah, there's like nothing else to talk about. So do you have anything? Because I forgot actually to grab my drink, and I will shortly bring it. I will shortly take it.
Okay.
So hold on.
Yeah, I know.
I need to drink something.
Don't worry about it. And just because I missed my intro a bit earlier. Hello, I'm Astro Nebula 2. I'm hoping you guys can hear me well, and I'm also going to be hopping in for casting along with the Keelan guy. So you'll be hearing a lot of me today. I'm glad to be here.
It should be a great time. I haven't had the privilege of casting with you before, but from my recollection, you're a Subash player, right?
Correct.
Nice.
I do wish I could affect my profile picture, but yes, I am a Subash main. I have been since before the cards came out, because as soon as the Kickstarter came out, I played Subash every single day on Exalt's table. So
nice. Very good. Well, I'm happy to have some Axiom representation at the moment, because frankly, that is one of the only factions that I haven't been playing recently, so that's super cool. Any decks that you think, maybe outside of your favorite main there, then, that you're excited to hopefully see today?
One thing that I am very, very excited to see is a little bit of possibly Waru, because I have been brewing a few ideas in the back of my head, and I'm hoping that someone else brings them out today, since obviously I am not in the tournament, so I'm not playing. And other than Waru, another deck that I'm pretty interested to see is possibly a little bit more Lyre Festival, which unfortunately I did not get to see much of last week. I was thinking that in maybe something like Blitz, people would have an easier way to play Lyre Festival, because maybe people would be playing less removal, or the strategies around wouldn't really account for Lyre Festival. So I was hoping someone would sneak one in there. But maybe this time we'll see a festival. We don't know.
Fair enough. I mean, it was actually pretty interesting you mentioning that you're hoping to see some Waru. A few weeks ago, I would have thought the chance of that was pretty close to 0, but actually after last week, we had every single hero in Altered represented not by just one pilot, but at least 2 pilots for every single hero,
Yes.
which is really exciting. So I would say actually there's a pretty good chance. Maybe the Waru comeback will be this week. Who knows?
And Bert actually asked the question, so Bert, we can actually just like shortly talk about that during the kitchen show as always, because you can share the thoughts as always, you know. So if you want to share the thoughts, then you can actually wait until we have like the kitchen show, so like the show after like the game's happening. So the casters were focusing fully on the game, but afterwards we can talk together about it. Because I also... Yeah, if you want to share something, then we can talk about it, right, guys? And then you can also join me as well. If you watch the stream, I don't know.
I am a big believer in talking about one's feelings in general. So absolutely, if you want to talk about your feelings, this is a safe place for that.
Yeah, it's a totally safe place. And talking about safe place, we only have like 1 minute left to also actually getting a safe sign up, because we actually had the accident that someone actually signed up like 30 or 40 seconds after the tournament start, because he could still register, and actually just like got kicked out even if he was in the tournament.
Oh, weird.
Oh, Keenan is a little bit loud. I can make it a little bit smaller. So actually I wanted to do everything through VOD Ninja, but actually there is like a big issue with the with the ultra setting right now that I cannot fix. I don't know how. Actually, it's like super sad. But actually it's like, okay, I mean, we still can listening to each other here. So yeah, like the tournament is starting right now, I guess. Yeah, it's starting now. All right. Yes. And 142 players. Amazing. So guys, have fun with Nebula and Keenan Guy for the cast. And I would just like quickly go to the kitchen. So see you.
Perfect. Well, Astro, is there a table that you think that you would love to jump into? Do you recognize any player names or anyone you don't recognize that you want to see? Or should I find something?
I personally, obviously being new to casting, I do not really have any my eye out for anything in particular. So I would like to go wherever you would like to go.
Cool. Well, you know what? I think in that case, I'm going to avoid a lot of the more familiar names that we're very used to. But I think I'd love to jump into table 30 if we get the chance. It's Orlan against Dimogenes, a battle of 2 Spanish players.
Interesting.
Which table?
All right.
Sorry,
30.
30. All right.
Yeah, we've seen actually a lot of success from the Spanish community in general with Altered. I think especially the team HAT, the Hispanic Altered team, primarily focused in and around Spain then. They've been doing a great job. I mean, in general, our winner of the leaderboard for Season 1 at least was HAT's Izzy Lopez, who is very well known for his Tasia play at this point, I would say. But overall, Spanish Altered community is super strong, so I have a strong feeling that there's a good support network for these players to be playing at a very high level. But it looks like we have a Traced versus a Kojo matchup.
Very interesting. I'm very happy to see some Axiom in the very, very first game. And this Traced is coming out pretty strong. Wow, okay, we've got an Amelia and a Keelan Elemental that already gets him 1 Trace counter on day 1.
Yeah, this looks like a very aggressive opener for Traced, actually, and for that reason as well, I have a feeling this isn't one of these crazy, like, combo build-arounds using the...
With the Ouroboros Bastion?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, this looks like aggro tempo to me. Interestingly, from Kojo, the choice here of using the common Tiny Jin, I think typically when we see that card, it has been at the rare, so I'm interested to see where the rare slots are going for the Kojo player.
Once we get to see that, hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit of insight into how he's going to be playing this game. Now that he's first, he does have his Buddha token, so we'll see how he uses that power. Oh, here comes the rare Athlet. Very interesting. Not a card you see as much in Kojo as Basira, but still pretty strong in the rare. That does exhaust his Keelan Elemental, preventing the Trace from getting another counter, unless he has another Keelan Elemental in hand, of course.
Yeah, you're totally right. Especially going into round one of an event like this on BGA, you often don't have full deck list knowledge of your opponent. You do get that knowledge in subsequent rounds as you can check the player's match history. And something like an Aklut, exactly as you mentioned, you're going to expect it out of Basira, but not always out of Kojo. Some people are playing it, but a lot are not. And that could definitely be a reason to be avoiding playing those rare Tiny Gens. I'm really wondering as well, though, maybe if they're saving the rare slots and playing some larger threats, if there's any chance of a card like Hunger coming out.
That is a very, quite a big possibility with the kind of deck that we might see him playing. One thing that I would like to mention is that unique Muna Merchant, which is a 3-cost, 2-cost, 3/1/2. With From Hand, you may discard a card from your reserve if you do resupply. Now, what that did for the Trace to that day was it let him gain 2 counters by not only discarding his own exhausted Keelan Elemental, but allowing him to get that 1-drop Amelia Earhart, which allowed him to get a 3rd counter. So he is looking pretty good for this 3rd day. If he has one more card to put 1 card in reserve, and by playing that Muna Merchant as well, he could very well have his ability up.
It's true, but there is still the threat of that Aklut coming out again from the Kojo's reserve themselves to potentially prevent cards from being played out from the reserve. It's, of course, really likely that that Muna Merchant is going to come out right away to either avoid Aklut or a potential sabotage, but overall, I wouldn't expect there to be like at least 100% success rate of Trace getting that hero ability online because of that Aklut that we already know about.
100%. Now that oh yes, okay. Kojo is not first anymore, which means his Buddha token no longer spawns in the companion side, and the Trace with his lead decided to play a Haven Bastion. The Bastion was updated earlier this year to no longer give every single character a boost and only be exhausted to give one character a boost from reserve. The Athlet coming out from Kojo does exhaust that Muna Merchant from in Trace's reserve, but the Bug-Out Bag coming out does guarantee that he puts 2 stats in the side.
Wow, though, the perfect block there on that companion side to even things up on the Tumult is that Tiny Gen. It doesn't advance itself, but it does prevent the advance from that Bug-Out Bag. Interesting, though, seeing the split between rarities, the rare Tiny Gen and common Tiny Gen both being fielded by the same deck.
Very interesting point you make there. One thing that does, however, is that the Trace's Bug-Out Bag does remain in the Expedition Zone, which means if he does have any support abilities or any cards that activate the triggers of permanents that he controls, he might be able to create a Brass Bug using the Bug-Out Bag.
That's true. There's also a non-zero chance for cards like, what's it called, Machine in the Ice, something along the lines of that requires a sacrifice of some variety to potentially make use of that as well. I have a feeling chances are they're not going to be playing something quite like that, but instead they're just playing the Bug-Out Bag for that aggro tempo plan that we were talking about earlier. But now we do finally have the Trace hero ability online. I say finally, it's not that late into the game. They just would have ideally gotten it a little bit sooner, but the Aklut did prevent that. But at a Lovelace now being put into reserve, that's a good potential card advantage engine, especially when the Haven Bravos Bastion makes it a little bit stronger when played out onto the Tumult as well.
That does just go over the Kojo's Haven Bouncer, and here we go. One of the cards I was expecting to see is a Dr. Frankenstein in its rare version, which from reserve can activate the arrow effects of any target permanent the Trace controls. He could get a resupply, he could get another Brass Bug to potentially block the Buddha token.
Yeah, definitely agreed on that. I think it's really likely here that the Trace player is going to just play for progressions, and I do think there's a lot of different cards that could potentially come out this day, where we would actually see a double advance from them, possibly at the cost of a single advance from the Kojo, but I have a feeling at the absolute worst, they're going to be at least getting a 1-for-1 here and getting some additional value.
100%. Now we do have a second Haven Bastion coming out from the hand of the Trace, and he, now with 2 mana left, is going to end up playing that Dr. Frankenstein on the companion side. It looks like he's going to activate the effects of the Bastion rather than going for the block with the Bug-Out Bag. Very interesting move on his part, but it does look like he has plenty of resources now with that Frozen Delivery Reserve and this interesting Walrus Scout unique, which is a 3-cost, 2-cost, 0/1/4 with Played From Anywhere resupply. It does have a very interesting support effect. You may have target character other than me lose fleeting, which is pretty strong when you have characters like Dr. Frankenstein in your deck.
With the Trace there choosing to progress on that on the mountain expedition, now hanging out in a water terrain, I think they're potentially just trying to play around that tiny Jin that we know about in the Kojo's Reserve, given that it will be so much more effective when that companion expedition is stuck on that mountain terrain. So I have a feeling that's why they're prioritizing that here. Oftentimes, Kojo doesn't have quite as much on the water stat if they're not playing Isenboshi, for example. And in general, we'll have more characters that do favor that mountain stat line. Of course, though, the Aklut that we already saw earlier, that is an exception to that rule in general, as are potential other includes like Bravo's Pathfinder, but it's not at all guaranteed that that's what this Kojo's on. The other thing I'm realizing is we are really close to the point in the game where the hunger could be really, really relevant and a little bit worrying even. But yeah, there's already just a lot of pressure coming out from Trace, and I don't think it's going to be at all game ending even if the hunger does come down.
Yeah, looking at this Walrus Scout that he's only played for two from the reserve, I think that's the kind of setup that this Traced was looking for in advance, just like in a chess game where you gotta look a few steps ahead. Turns out that he did not want to advance in on the companion side so that he could stay in Water Mountain and benefit off of that unique, having 4 in water, because Kojo, of course, is stuck in water only on the hero side.
No, you're totally right, and we see this card, the Blizzard, now as well, entering the reserve from the Traced. How do you feel about that out of Axiom? I don't think I've ever seen that card, the rare version, out of Axiom before.
Okay, so one thing about the rare version of Blizzard and Axiom is that I like to compare it to Kraken's Wrath, given that both are the same cost, fleeting removal spells. The Blizzard basically guarantees that if you play it late enough, your opponent cannot contest one of your expeditions, while Kraken's Wrath is, of course, applicable anywhere. You can target any characters in either expedition. So the difference between the Blizzard and Kraken's Wrath, in my opinion, is that both are useful for removal, but Blizzard is more focused on guaranteeing that one expedition, while Kraken's Wrath is more applicable when you're trying to go for a complete board wipe, and is more powerful against things like Ortis, which usually has split tokens versus a bunch of characters in one expedition.
Wow, this Kojo deck, though, is pretty sweet. Lots of cool things happening now. We do see Theseus getting scouted, and the player is now choosing which character they want to return to hand. And it does end up being that Dr. Frankenstein. Notably for the Traced, they did resupply again while playing that Dr. Frankenstein from the reserve, thanks to the Haven and Bravos Bastions that are currently in play, but they weren't able to hit anything that would be playable from the reserve, and unfortunately for them, seeing just a pass now, that's probably what the Kojo was very much relying on with that play.
100%. It's very interesting that, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't not seen a single unique come out of Kojo, and yet we've already seen the third unique coming out of the Trace, being a 3-cost Niece with stats 2 in Forest, 4 in Mountain, and 4 in Water. From reserve, you can roll a die, and on a 4+ resupply, otherwise exhausted resupply, when it leaves the expedition zone, if it was fleeting, draw a card. So it's got the Haven Seringer ability on it. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, it looks like all of these Trace uniques specifically are really heavily focused on value and otherwise powering out that Trace hero ability as quickly as possible. Resupply effects, absolutely doing that. The Muna Merchant that we saw earlier with the token creation and putting cards in reserve effect to return cards from reserve to the hand, and then this one being both card draw and resupply. Yeah, this is definitely Turbo Trace the way I think we used to refer to that deck back when Haven was the non-suspended version.
Yeah, it was the go-to for pretty much all Traced, and yes, I will admit, I did use it too, but only because Subash is a bit weak without it. So here we go. We've got Kojo first again, and so his Buddha token is coming out on the companion side. That Theseus from reserve is going to be pretty big, an 8-cost 8/8/8 with return target character to its owner's hand, but he decides to play another. Wow, this Kojo deck has a lot of high-cost characters. I very much enjoy watching this Kojo. It is the first unique of the game for him, an enhanced prototype, 6 cost, 6 cost, 3/7/4, with played from anywhere you may spend 1 counter from a card you control or in your reserve. If you do, ready 2 mana orbs. So it's got that rare enhanced prototype out of action ability, but on a played from anywhere, which is very, very interesting.
My headset did die for a second there. Sorry about that, but I am back. Yeah, it's interesting seeing that enhanced prototype, as you mentioned. Like, typically at this point, I'm typically much more often seeing this sort of effect out of an Atsadi rather than a Kojo. And also, I'm almost surprised that it is a Kojo that we're indeed seeing, given that there's also a Theseus in reserve. I feel like these cards work pretty well in Atsadi at the moment. But overall, I think they're just really highly valuing that ability of having that Buddha to take early expedition progressions and otherwise stalling out a little bit. And they are now at the stages of the game with having a mana advantage like the one that they've put together thus far, that they can potentially ride out and even go over the top of a lot of things that the Trace is looking to do. The Magic Slay, that made you say, oh, tell me a bit about that one.
Yeah. Okay, so the Magic Slay is in its rare, a 3 cost expedition permanent. And because it's a 3 cost rather than the common 4 cost, it gains fleeting when played from anywhere. If its expedition would move forward during dusk, it moves twice instead, so it essentially gives you a double advance if your opponent is only playing for one side. The reason I said whoa is that I'm surprised it's coming out so early, because not only is that enhanced prototype not in its mountain stat, it's only got 4 in water here, Trace still has 6 mana left, which is plenty to block, even with that one Niece, which already blocks him, meaning that Magic Slay is pretty much going to be useless this day. I'm afraid for this Kojo, because if Trace has the cards that he needs, then he may very well be able to double advance and win this day.
Yeah, I was really assuming that we were actually going to see the Haven Bravos Bastions get exhausted there in order to buff up this Nissa onto the hero side. Because I do believe if they had done that twice and then just played out the Tinkerbell as well, they would have the guaranteed victory with a double progression there, having, Tinkerbell just barely outstat the Buddha in the relevant stat lines. But yeah, we do see the Grems now being put into the reserve thanks to that hero ability. And wow, that's actually a pretty sweet one in this spot.
100%. I will say, I think Trace probably wasn't expecting to use Tinkerbell, because as soon as the enhanced prototype came out, he didn't see a need to sabotage the Theseus. And so playing off of that Grems makes a lot of sense, because he had 3 permanents. Even if he didn't double advance, his permanents would have overflowed, and then he would have had to discard anyway. So I think he was probably planning on playing out those Grems and using the Haven Bastion double boosts in order to get that double advance. And I do think that one thing we probably missed with the Kojo deck is, when you think about all of these high cost characters and stuff in a deck like Kojo that doesn't have as much draw, or whereas Atsadi has that draw on his ability, Kojo can possibly get stuck with those high cost characters, and that's what I think happened here. Is he did not have optimal characters for his mana in order to play that out, because that enhanced prototype was not even able to be played in its highest stat, which was Mountain. And playing a Magic Slay after that was seemingly, in my opinion at least, probably not Kojo's best option. And that's probably where Atsadi's draw helps Atsadis basically get the cards that they need, is what I'm trying to say.
Definitely agreed on that. And with that, I think we're going to be heading over to the kitchen, where maybe paandyandy has something he wants to talk about related to that game.
I mean, this game was pretty fast.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll have plenty to talk about, though.
Yeah. Nothing to add. No, actually, it's super interesting list by Kojo by far, seeing like all those high cost, but I think you did like a super great summarize of that during the game. I'm actually super excited to see every time it Trace just like being in action and out of the play, because with all like the new cards that got like to add through like the Whispers from Maze, actually was like a super adjustment for most of like the Axiom decks like a general, but especially for Trace, a super nice way to see. And also what I'm actually thinking about is like actually a Kojo with like higher cost cards, so also maybe just like stronger characters. At some point it feels like it could be potentially pop up, because always on your turn you have always like a free character as a 2/2 cost. So I mean, basically you have like a free expeditioner, almost like 50-50, guys. Maybe less, but you know what I mean. And to just like using the strength of like General Bravos character that's being like in the high cost, and I mean there are like so many cards that like super cool. Also with the scout effect, was like super interesting to see. And I mean it was like an almost win. But yeah. So the Trace took the game. I'm super happy for that, to seeing into this thing, to seeing like how the first round went. And now for MC Bird that wanted to talk about the Road Qualifier stream. If you don't guys from the cast have other questions about the game, then we're super open for that. So let us know, Bird, what you want to say to us. Let us know.
I just wanted to say in general, though, as well there, that I think the Grems specifically, that was the card that did close out the game there at the very end. And I think that was one of the most hyped up cards from the recent set, as far as the ability to put a card at common even directly into a list and make it a lot more competitive. I really think that is maybe some glue that Traced was potentially missing before, especially for that archetype, the one that's looking for a more fair game plan to actually take things out with progressions and bug out bag as well. So I think that's a sweet meta call and definitely a good upgrade since the previous set.
100%. Me being an Axiom player, I can already envision practically his entire deck list. He's got the whole thing planned out from the beginning because it all relies on his cheap cards, for example, Amelia Earhart and that Walrus unique that we saw, to the permanence, which is his, I like to think of it as two different win conditions. You've got, if you don't draw those Haven Bastions, you've still got those Amelias, you've still got those cheap, powerful cards you can play from reserve. And if you do draw the Haven Bastions and other strong permanents, then you can really lean into that with the Haven Bastions, the Rare Refinery that we saw, and the Bug Out Bag, which synergizes really well with that Rare Dr. Frankenstein, Common Grems, and so I really feel like he has a really well-rounded deck. One thing that I wish we could have seen a little bit more of is the removal, but I am really interested to see, and hopefully later, if we see the Traced again, figure out why he has that Blizzard in the deck. Because one thing that I did see he was missing a bit was stall for that Blizzard. You don't really put Blizzard in a deck unless you've got enough stall, like maybe Frozen Delivery, you got like a bunch of like, what I mean by that is like, I'm very interested to see how he would utilize that Blizzard in a real situation like that. And
just like to interrupt you, I'm so sorry. Can we quickly check what's going on table 44?
Sure.
Just like checking it out.
No. You don't tab in. I can tell you exactly what's happened there. We got to the point where the players are choosing their factions, and one of them simply did not connect after that, and is now timing out. So it will take a while until the game actually kicks them. But I think that's all that's happened there.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
It happens sometimes, but maybe table 34 still has a lot of progress to go. If we want to jump into that one,
we can jump into table 34. So,
oh my goodness, yes, we do have something cool happening here.
Oh no.
Wow.
Oh, no.
I see.
Oh, no.
Hey, it's the Waru that I was excited for.
You know, it's Waru that you were excited for, but there's also a ton of really special cards coming out from them that we definitely do not see all the time. Common Isatok, already actually pretty unique at this point. I mean, we used to see it in the good old days of Robin Hood. I know everyone loves those days. But definitely like this rare Grand Bois, Ortis Crier, and then Ariadne. That's crazy.
Not to mention, we have an Ortis Night Warden coming out in the common version, which I would think that would be the rare slot that Grand Bois has taken here. We don't know, but...
Yeah, definitely interesting. I don't think it's quite that hostage that we've seen from other players before. This looks more like just a fair way of building the deck, but ooh, we do have Afanis now playing the removal, and actually a really efficient removal against Waru specifically. The rare Banishing Gate, that's crazy.
I believe that is his only removal in this deck. I think I did see this deck the other day. I was not casting, but I was watching the tournament, I believe the day before yesterday, and I believe I saw this very deck. I think that is his only removal, just one rare Banishing Gate.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. In general, Banishing Gate is often played at common by Afanis decks, because there are just enough random permanents going around that are efficient to remove or important that you do at the correct stages of the game. Lyra Festival is a good example, but lots of things that go around. It's just a good catch-all answer, but spending a rare slot on it is a much less. I would say it's a much less common thing to choose. Of course,
Yeah, I'm very
category
surprised,
Mage
honestly.
Dancer. Yeah.
One thing to note is that he doesn't even have, other than the Beauty Sleep, that one rare Banish Gate is his only source of hard removal. And as we can see, it seems like he needed it. And now he's in a really, really good spot because being one away from victory, we don't, I'm not sure how this warrior is going to deal with having to top deck.
Yeah, it's not only that the warrior has to top deck here, it's that the problem is that I think the thing that makes this hero particularly painful to try to play at the moment is the fact that you no longer get to choose whether or not your bureaucrat gains a sleep when you play it out. And once you're at the point
100%.
when your opponent can win just with a single expedition progression, they're gonna get it somehow if you draw bureaucrats, which is the really rough part at this stage of the game.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like he might have to rely on the Grand Bois, but the issue here is that Afanas has got plenty of stall, and he is first, so I'm afraid, I think he might just be using this Rime Frost from reserve, even more, limiting Waru's options even more.
Yeah, at this stage of the game, that is well and truly just removal, like preemptive removal at this point. It's not like you get to play this later, it's that you don't get to play the game anymore. I have a feeling that they might just be able to ride out this Tooth Fairy unless they've drawn like perfect sequence of non-bureaucrat cards.
We'll have to see how it goes. He does have 2 Bountiful Meadows, but because those are bureaucrats, because they only apply to bureaucrats, it doesn't matter if you play them for 2 less, they're still gonna gain a sleep. So, I will say, I mean, we could have the chance of seeing a Celebration Day. He does have 8 mana, but I would say that it's possibly unlikely that of the 2 cards that he drew, one of them was Celebration Day.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. We've seen that from other Waru players before. I mean, there's only one. Yeah, exactly. Only one Mr. Runefolk who is known for it, I would say, very much at this point. However, there's a chance it slips into a deck list here or there. But I can't help but feel like looking at the other cards that we've seen now in the discard from the Waru, I think the chance of that it's this hostage gameplay style, I sort of doubt it. Isatok, yeah, definitely the hallmark of that strategy, but these other cards, they just look like more mid-rangey bureaucrat threats.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see the common Ariadne. That's one card that I was very confused when I first saw it, because not only is it pretty expensive, it is when an opponent plays a character, not in the expedition facing me, but just in either expedition. And then, if there are no characters in the expedition facing me, that character that the opponent played switches expeditions, which means if they're trying to play a character in the expedition opposite Ariadne, then it would go into Ariadne's expedition. And if they played it in Ariadne's expedition, it would go into the other expedition, which is honestly, like, if the point of Ariadne is to do control, then it's kind of unreliable because your opponent can still technically play the card anywhere. They just have to put it in the opposite expedition and then it'll go in the one that they want it to go.
Yeah, now just with this license withdrawal being the only thing left to play from the Waru, I think this one is done and dusted. But yeah, it's super funny in general, that Ariadne. I do feel like there's some world, especially the line of text that it has, I feel like there's going to be some unique out there at some point that gets like a really sweet synergy with it and makes it really work. I'm pretty sure...
It's one of those niche cards like Rune's Testament.
Yeah, true. I'm pretty sure that Freeloader gave that card a 0-star rating, his only 0-star rating in his review series for the more recent card set that came out, Whispers from the Maze. But I think Kohlrabi and I have both been telling him, nah, he just doesn't see the vision. He doesn't see the vision. I think this Waru player sees the vision, but it's not quite enough for this game, at least.
But this is like super crazy. And it actually more and more people try out this archetype.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. Yeah, sorry. Looking at the chat, we've got Phobia kindly enlightening me as to remind me that when you do play a character in the expedition facing Ariadne, it no longer is empty, so it won't switch. So I did forget about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've referred to it as taunt, like as a mechanic from different games more so. Just in general, forcing the
Legends.
person to contest on that side, at least something along those lines. But yeah, couple tables still finishing up at this point. Just to repeat, so for anyone who's not so familiar with this series, this is a 5-round event. Paandyandy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume, as usual, there will be a boss battle at the end of it as well.
Yes, the boss battle as well. Actually, I don't know who wants to do the boss battle. I forgot to ask, actually.
Oh no.
And I figured out something, guys, because Rune told me that he's going to be at dinner this evening, but actually he's up in another stream for a German guy with 100 viewers, so congrats on that. I don't know why he did like a secret with that. I don't know why he put like a secret with about that. He was like, yeah, I need to go to dinner instead of saying that, but that is super awesome, super awesome. I just like check it out next to it. So I'm just like still waiting for Bird because he told us that he wanted to talk about a specific thing, but don't want to do it. It's okay. Also, table 44 got fixed. Basically, actually someone figured out that you can't use the same Altered account if both of the accounts played on the same time anymore. So they fixed that. Basically, you can't just like play with multiple accounts on if you only have like one Altered account linked. That's interesting.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, what did you just say? You said that you can only have one account linked now?
You can link multiple accounts, but those accounts cannot play on the same time.
Okay. Yeah, that's
he
good.
Said, like, there's another account, and he couldn't choose like any deck because there was like a message, another deck already being played on another deck already and stuff like that. This is like,
you know,
super
that's
crazy.
great. That's really good because I'm personally a big fan of people being able to use alternate accounts or potentially conceal information if they're looking to like practice for something. And for that reason, like using a different BGA account can be super helpful. But I think there is a potential worry, especially when it comes towards these events that are looking to be hosted as official World Championship qualifiers from Equinox as well. Not letting someone potentially queue into the event for free with like 6 different accounts and then just try to qualify on the one that has the best record at the end, something along the lines of that. I do think that is one of the biggest worries as far as competitive integrity for that sort of event. I honestly think otherwise that the online platform will actually have significantly better competitive integrity than the real life events even. But I think that was one of the main worries. So if they've indeed fixed that or made that a little bit more facilitated, at least to potentially look into at least the altered account to make sure that someone's not queuing up in the same account repeatedly. I like that. That's great.
Yeah, that's super cool. It's super cool to say that. To see that. So let's see if the first round is still up. Oh yeah. We still could like get a couple of tables left to play. No, actually it's like the one table. And now let's talk shortly. I want to talk about the thing because let's talk about the timing. So as you can see, someone is in 12 minutes overtime. Actually,
yeah, this is the player who did not connect for the first 19 minutes. Yep.
And it's like super crazy. So oh my goodness. But hey, he actually said that he will play a starter deck, and it seems like pretty okay for the start off. That's cool. So guys, you can play anymore with multiple accounts. I mean, if you have maximum time reached. So we can jump in directly into round 2, and it's super awesome. So again, guys, for the cast today, it will be the Killing Guy, as well as Nebula or Astronebula 2, as you can see right in the chat. And yeah, I'm super excited for that. So just tell me, which table do you want to join in?
This time it's up to you, Astro. It's your pick.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking we could just bounce off of each other. I kind of want to explore a little, a few options. Maybe we could do. Let's see. Is table 7 available? Table 7. Does that say to be played?
No, that works. Table 7.
No, table 7's in progress. Okay, table 7's in progress. Okay, let's go to table 7 then.
Can't imagine why you want to go to this table. Definitely recognize at least one of the player names here. But yeah, overall, thus far, I mean, I'm already happy having seen a Traced with that mid-range gameplay style that we do not see all the time, or at least we was starting to feel a little bit like a, what do you call it, an endangered species. But yeah, seeing
I will
them
say-
regrow and reclaim the planet, I'm happy about.
Yeah, if there is anything about endangered species, I would know. I have been playing Subhash non-stop because I do not have any other faction cards because I traded them all away for Axiom. And I have been struggling a little bit,
Did you already
but
set the
hopefully
table?
I'll find my...
7.
Yeah,
Yes, we've said it
7. Oh,
repeatedly.
I'm so sorry, guys. I have
Yeah,
something
no,
with
don't
my
worry,
ears.
it's just not loading.
Oh, it's just like
It will,
now
will.
it's loaded. Okay, and both just
Okay.
like pass. Oh, okay, it was the mana channeling. Okay.
No,
have
no,
fun, have
we
fun,
had a
have fun.
mana channel. Yeah. We had a carrier coming out from the Golrong and then a mana channeling coming out from the Atsadi. I am very excited to see this game switching from the traced super fast playstyle and slowing the tempo down because we now have 2 characters that love the late game.
No, you're totally right on that. It is funny, though. It's very atypical, I would say, to have a match where nothing seemingly happens on day 1, but so many things have happened. Putting an Ortis carrier down, I think Golrung's one of the only heroes where that actually feels super good to manage. Just that, yeah, Ortis carrier in general being just a single body you get for it, and you often have to concede a single or a double advance in order to enable that. Sometimes it just does not work. But for Golrung, it's a lot more high power level, I would say. And of course, Atsadi always wants to ramp. That is a very good thing for them.
Now being at 6 mana, the Atsadi has a 2 mana lead, and with only 1 expedition conceded due to that token being defender, he might be in a pretty good spot to contest today.
I just had a Boardgamesarena crash. I'm reloading it now. But
Don't worry
yeah.
about it. Oh, one
Alright,
thing
there
we
we go,
missed
back
was
in.
the Ozma Unique from the Golrung. It's a 2-cost, 3-cost, 2/1/2 with from hand if you have less than 8 mana orbs, draw a card. Very interesting Ozma. I don't think I've seen one that has a condition related to mana orbs.
Oh,
And
this is
played from
awesome.
reserve. If you control 3 or more characters, you may discard target permanent.
I saw the
Wow.
other day a 3/2 Ozma that just had that draw card if you have less than 8 mana orbs effect when played from hand, and I'm pretty sure it was played out of a Sigismar, which essentially it had really similar stats to Baba Yaga as well, which was essentially just saying like, I really need my rare Baba Yagas, but this card is so sweet. I think especially at this point in time, there are permanents in virtually every deck, if not most of them, in some capacity. For some of them, they're a little bit less integral to the game plan, but even out of Tasia, for example, in pretty much any matchup, you're going to see them want to play a Floral Tent, for example, at some point, or just something along the lines of that. And being able to get a little bit of value out of those situations is great. Being able to get a lot of value out of the ones where your opponent's deck is completely built around permanents is even better.
Yep.
This Ozma looks so good.
Oh, and that's pretty interesting. We see a Haven Bouncer coming out, and that's going to be discarding the field reinforcements, even though they were on cooldown. I will say he probably knew that the opponent could not play Ozma, given that it's 3 costs. And, oh! We have a Theseus coming in from the Atsadi. That's a pretty early Theseus, but then again, having that 3-cost scout makes it super duper versatile, and it looks like he might just be returning that recruit to hand. Although he could technically target itself, although I'm not sure why he would.
Possibly just to get a card draw out, but in general, yeah, I think it was a nice play, especially, of course, depending on the Shoddy list, right? Some of them do rely a little bit more on permanence, or that like eat me energy bars in some cases, and some of them care about it a lot less. And I think that's also one of the reasons why the Haven Bouncer was prioritizing the field reinforcements there, recognizing that card draw is probably just the most important early game thing that they're thinking about. And if that Ozma gets played out from reserve in the next day or two anyway, it's not going to be hitting anything critical with that from reserve ability.
Yep, I hope so. One thing that I am interested to see in Atsadi is that new out-of-faction Scholar's Vault. I do not know whether this Atsadi has it or not, but I will be very interested to see if he does, because it is a pretty powerful deck that, for only 2 mana, enables the cost reduction on characters that cost 7 or more.
That is true. I am wondering, though, how optimal this game is going so far for actually either player. I'm thinking in general, Golrung is very, very happy to be seeing that they're not falling like so far behind against a ton of pressure early on into a game. But for them, it's going to be a weird situation where if they do take another progression or so before Achadi has done so, they're not going to be able to get a lot of value out of a lot of the cards that I'm assuming are in their deck. And meanwhile, Achadi, like, yeah, they've fallen barely behind on the tumult, but I think everything's going in their favor thus far, at least as far as I can see it.
100%. A lot of cards that Atsadi plays, things like the big Kaibaras, they rely on being behind because Kaibara, as you know, gains more tough out. What a coincidence! We got that Kaibara that I was just talking about, and it's got tough 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I do not believe Gorong has a way of removing it, unless with something like a hypothermia, I guess, technically.
You know, there are ways, but I think, yeah, this is what we're seeing now from Glorang instead. It's just playing out permanence, just setting up a little bit. It's probably, you know, as exactly as we were just mentioning, it's probably okay for them to actually let the Achadi get a little bit ahead on board so that they can actually start to leverage some of their other more control-y cards a little bit better, or at least things that require them to be behind or tied in order to get the additional value from them. But
Yep.
overall, I think the thing that I'm very happy about, at least from the Achadi perspective, is they have a lot of cards they're working with, and they've been under virtually no pressure thus far, meaning that whatever hand that they have at this point, I'm assuming is very well sculpted.
Yep. Remember, he could possibly, I'm expecting he kept that Theseus that he scouted earlier, so he's got that. It would be quite broken if it could target permanents too, but fortunately for the Gorong, it cannot. And we've still got that Kaibar in reserve, which does put out plenty of stats, and if he has a way to boost it, then it could be even more powerful.
We did have a question in the chat there talking about what actually beats removal in general, because it can be pretty frustrating. And I think, yeah, Kohlrabi did a very good shout out there saying that just playing cheaper characters is definitely a easy way to do that. But I would say that's the case for multiple reasons. One, it doesn't feel good to play removal when you're having to do so at a mana disadvantage. Playing like Off You Go feels great when it goes after, say, a Dracana from Tasia, for example. You get rid of an anchored threat, and you trade it efficiently as far as mana goes on that. Meanwhile, if someone plays out an Ortis Trooper, it feels miserable thinking about removing that. So definitely there's that. But it's also the fact that cheap characters and cheap spells and effects in general are just easy ways of saying after you, making you commit less to the board sooner, and giving the opponent less opportunities to use an effective removal spell. So I think it's really both of those dynamics. Sometimes, yeah, it's just playing cheaper characters, but otherwise, just cards like Magical Training, or even the one that we just saw here in this game, Rallying Call, for example, playing that out earlier on into the day helps make you a little bit more resilient against removal effects.
Yeah, and then one thing I wanted to mention is in the chat we've got Asian Potato talking about cards like Blizzard, Avalanche, and of course the Hunger, but those cards are a little bit hard to play when you don't know whether or not your opponent has cheaper cards. So maybe 1 or 2 copies can be justified putting in a deck, but as a main source of removal, not as much. Coming back to the game though, we are now seeing a Kappa come out. It's a 6 cost, 5 cost, 7/3/3. With played from anywhere, you may put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, you may discard target permanent. He did discard the Masectet, but a second one looks to be coming out from the Golrang. It is good though that he got rid of at least one of them, because otherwise they would have been able to keep 2, and obviously you don't want that, so...
Yeah, you know, it's funny. It's actually a really good curve, at least as far as timing of playing out this Kappa, which is pretty sweet. Being able to play out that Tiny Djinn immediately after, especially thanks to the discounted cost of... I'm sorry, yeah, exactly, you're right. Mighty Djinn, not Tiny Djinn. Being able to play it out with that reserve cost of 3 instead of the 4 from hand, thanks to having discarded it to reserve, that's just efficient. Love that play. And it's a funny thing as well, where these Kappa uniques, sometimes we see them get like much lower in cost and still get some pretty good effects. And sometimes in general, we've seen them be like overcosted, I would say, at least compared to their normal versions. And this one is overcosted, but I feel like the Itzadi is maybe the one hero that actually likes that in some cases. This just means that when they play out this Kappa and it's efficient, it's often going to draw them additional cards, which is sweet.
100%. Not to mention, that removal took out one of those Masectets, so now instead of having 2 Masectets, their Golrang is left with a Masectet and Ortis Carrier, making that day pretty inefficient for them, given that they basically achieved nothing.
Yeah, they did achieve sort of nothing there, but I think the thing that's at least nice for them is that they did have the follow-up landmark to essentially say, nah, I cared about that gameplay strategy of having that card, you removed it, you spent your turn taking a single progression and removing that critical threat, and then I just had the critical threat again. So I think the thing that's really nice for Golrang at least is saying that, okay, you know, at least my game plan is still very much online here. And they, of course, they have that Ortis carrier as well, and they are at the point where their hero ability is well and truly activated, where the tokens no longer have defender.
That is going to be a crucial turning point for this Glorong, but one thing that I'm excited to see is if this Atsadi instead chooses to do some of his own setup and possibly let this Glorong advance ahead of him to make that Masectet and other cards that you mentioned less effective. So I can't wait to see how he plays this. His reserve is looking pretty expensive, and he's got 11, possibly 12 mana this turn if he does mana. And with 3 cards in hand, I do not really know which way this could swing.
Yeah, I think I like this immediate posture, just playing out this Kappa yet again, and I'm assuming the target here is going to be the Masectet yet again, and yes, it is. I think what they're recognizing here is that Golrang's path to victory includes a lot of setup, and breaking through these Masectets just back to back is probably the easiest way to try to prevent that setup from ever truly being able to carry the Golrang to victory. We do have a pretty good card, though, coming out from Golrang, at least in that spot where their game plan is getting broken down a little bit, which is Conjuring Seal. Drawing additional cards is really important when your opponent is taxing your resources the way the Kappa's removal effect is doing.
Yep. Not to mention, playing that permanent in the first place is kind of losing a little bit of card advantage since it does not go into reserve. Keep in mind, though, that Phobia... Oh, he ends up playing the Isenboshi instead of using it for its support effect, which I was not expecting. That Kappa could not have come at a more perfect time!
Oh, man. Well...
And there we go, that Conjuring Seal probably got him that Masectet, as you were saying.
Exactly. Oh, I mean, yeah, beautiful timing. I mean, I feel like you can't help but feel for Phobia at this point. He got rid of the first, Masectet. Oh, okay, yeah, and this is how highly valued that Masectet is currently. It is now meeting a Mana Eruption as well as the third removal. There will be no more Masectets left in the Golrang's deck at this point. They're going to have to chew through another 19 cards before reshuffling those back in. So and they're really reliant... Yeah, possibly drawing them again then after that. Meaning that chances are, I have a feeling for the rest of this game, we are not going to be seeing any more of those. If that is really the critical piece for their deck, they're going to have a lot of trouble, I would say. But, this Rallying Call, it is played mana efficiently there, meaning that they are trying to prevent the progression on the hero side, but a timely Aoife that might change the math here a little bit, and I believe it does. And I think that one even keeps this Kappa around.
I'm surprised. Wait, hang on a second. How did he play that? I thought he had 1 mana left.
The visual was broken, unfortunately, because Mana Eruption removes a mana orb. I believe that's why. Just the visual breaks a little bit there, but there were 2 mana remaining for them, so the Aoife does come down at good timing and will keep around that Kappa. But notably, they're now at very few cards left in hand. And I guess the one saving grace here is that they are at shoddy. If they play out this Kaibara again, they will be able to draw up a little bit more. But they definitely have consumed most of their resources in order to enable this line of play.
Yeah, don't forget as well that there's still a bunch of 7-cost characters that Sadi has. The main one that I'm expecting being Sakara Brew. He's got plenty of mana here, and it could be, unfortunately, that he's been holding the Sakara Brew because of that Ozma, which he's expecting to discard his Eat Me's, or chocolate bars, however you want to say it. I call them Eat Me energy bars. Some people say chocolate bars.
No, I call them Eat Me energy bars as well. That's the one.
Yep.
But yeah, now just the one.
Unfortunately, that Ozma has a chokehold on that. Sorry for
it definitely does.
My thought, but yeah.
It's true. It definitely disables that line of play, but I think the good thing, at least for Achadi's perspective here, is that, that Kaibara already has Gigantic when they do play it out, so they're not at a loss of Gigantic threats entirely, and otherwise, if there's more setup, that Kappa can potentially chew through it. And we might see that then again here with a second Ortis Carrier being played out. That's now 5 landmarks having been played out this game by the Golrang thus far.
Very, very interesting. And Kohlrabi has mentioned in the chat that this is Phobia, that the Atsadi is Phobia that won Ace Week 2 the day before yesterday with this very same Atsadi list, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. As far as Achadi players go, I think Phobia is, at this point, at least one of the most well-known ones, which is always cool to see. People coming back and, continuing to play with some of their favorite heroes.
100%. His persistence with playing Atsari since the very, very beginning has proven that he has experience. He knows every matchup, and he puts a lot of his time into Altered, I would know. So he definitely has the power to show for it, and you can see his deck building skills certainly have kept in mind every single possible play. He's got removal for characters with the Theseus, he's got removal for permanents with this unique and mana reaping. He's got a lot of different avenues of play. He's got that Sakarabu playstyle, he's got this Kaibara. So he has so many options, and despite leaning into those high cost characters with that scout, he has so many options.
You know, it's also worth mentioning, I'm pretty sure their opponent, ALR Zoka54, I'm pretty sure that's either an alt account or someone related to Zoa54, who's typically well known for playing Lindaway. So interestingly enough, prioritizing a different hero here in the new metagame potentially, or maybe just trying out something different. But in general, that player, I'm pretty sure they love Mobile Armory, as we're used to seeing that from them out of Lindaway, but definitely here as well for the Gulrang. Makes a lot of sense. But, ooh, a really sweet new inclusion here with the Merry Reunion. Tell me more about that card.
So Merry Reunion does happen to be an out-of-faction spell in Bravos coming in from Lyra. It is a 2-cost, 1-cost with cooldown, which makes it so that you cannot immediately just stall for 2 turns in a row. Its effect is basically a resupply with a bonus that if you put a character in reserve this way, so if the card you resupplied was a character, then you may put it in your hand. The difference between this and the common is that the common lets you play that character for 2 less, essentially because the spell costs 2, giving you a free resupply.
Yeah, definitely a really cool one. I've been looking into trying to figure out how I can make that work out of Lyra in its own faction, but I definitely think this card makes a lot of sense for it, Shoddy, in the out-of-faction rare form. It just goes really well with the just general gameplay strategy that Shoddy's typically going for, where once you're ramping up to these mana totals, yeah, it ends up being really efficient just to play this card out.
Yep, it essentially becomes sort of like a magical training since you don't often see Atsaris with many spells or permanents. Unfortunately, this time he did resupply into a mana eruption, but keep in mind there's plenty of good cards he would want to put into his hand like a Theseus, Eve, anything with a scout. And here we do see him starting off with that Merry Reunion, and that Haven Bouncer coming in hand means he finally has a way to get rid of that pesky Ozma. We'll see how he uses it and if he decides to use it this day.
I have a feeling there's a very high chance that might come out immediately if that Ozma does stick around in reserve. It also, though, really depends on whether or not their strategy, or at least the Ashadi strategy, is based on having something like that Eat Me Energy Bars in hand. If it's not really so relevant at the moment, I do think it's a situation where they're likely just trying to progress on the hero side anyway, and for that reason, the Eat Me Energy Bars might not matter so much as something like, for example, this license withdrawal, which does get put into reserve here.
One thing that I would like to note is that by revealing that license withdrawal, Phobia with 11 mana left and 4 cards in hand has plenty of options for how he would want to play this. Remember, that license withdrawal can only target boosted characters, so, but what I really would like to point out is that because it is another 3-cost way to discard target permanent, Phobia still has to tread lightly when it comes to things like Eat Me Energy Bars.
That is definitely true. I like here seeing just the Kappa getting played out immediately. It does look like it's just going after this Robin Hood right away, and again, it puts another Mighty Djinn into reserve. That is just such a nice, effective play, especially with the common Mighty Djinn, where you don't get to draw a card if you're not putting it into the mana zone, rather, when it leaves the expedition zone. It's just so efficient, just for 3 mana to be able to play out a character that then ramps you subsequently. So good.
Yep, and looking at this Gulrang's reserve, it looks like he does not really have any efficient cards that he can play, so we might just have to see something coming out from his hand, and then have to discard cards when it comes down to the reserve.
Yeah, still a nice board state, I would say, for the Gulrang, at least on that companion side, but the question here is whether they can shore up that hero side. It is an Aegis Templar getting played out here, so that does give a pretty good way to start off the day, at least, for trying to block out on that hero side, but still with 6 mana remaining for Achadi. I feel like there's going to be something else other than just this Mighty Djinn that they're going to have to think about.
Oh, we do end up having that Haven Bouncer that is going to discard that Aegis Templar, which means he won't be able to replay that, blocking him in water. It could be that he's saving the Mighty Djinn, but more likely than not, he's going to be playing it just so that he can get that extra ramp. I will be interested to see though, since it doesn't have any water stats and their opponent Golrong is already at 6 in the companion side, he might just opt to save it for later. I'm not completely sure.
Ooh, nice little Ortus Attorney though. The one nice thing about that here is that even with this day going in the Itshadi's favor, there will be at least be some card draw coming out now from Golrong. But we are now entering the point of the game where a single progression from Itshadi will let them take this win. Golrong still has a lot of work to do in order to catch up.
Yep. All we can hope for, all Golrong can hope for now is the right amount of stall, so that he can try to figure out how to get him to stop advancing in either expedition. Now, one thing that I'm interested to see is how, because he doesn't have those Masectats and Phobia prioritized removing that setup, as you mentioned, those Ortus carriers aren't going to be doing much for Golrong this day, because Phobia is already going to be ignoring those and probably simply go for a putting as many stats as he can on that hero side.
Yeah, I mean, at least the one thing is they can feel a little bit more safe just playing completely away from that companion side, at least, with the two characters already out on it. Sometimes one of the really awkward things when you're in these late game scenarios where you need to stall out is it feels so uncomfortable to play any character anywhere, because you do know that whatever the opponent has will just enter the other side. In this case, you have a side that's a little bit more defended to start with, but yeah, decent start though for... Yeah. No, go for it.
Yeah, I was sorry. No, sorry. The field reinforcements, because that Golrong is ahead on that companion side, the field reinforcements only drew him a card and was not also able to put a recruit down. So he is lacking in stats, and that Sakara is very, very juicy. I'm wondering why he went for that immediately. Probably because if he did have Eat Me, then he was worried about license withdrawal. But Sakara on its own is still really excellent, because even if he does get blocked this day and doesn't win, this Golrong still has so much to make up for.
Notably, this license withdrawal, it can go after the Haven Bouncer here, and then they would currently be outstatting on that hero side. But I almost feel like that's almost a bait that that Phobia is completely okay with as far as the Itshadi player is concerned here. I think they're happy with that. I do think there's a very good chance that if that license withdrawal does come out, that there's nothing left for Golrong at that mana cost. Of course, they might be playing enough cheap characters that they'll have subsequent options, but it's definitely not a guarantee. But overall, yeah, that funny dynamic with being, you know, not behind on a certain expedition is so critical here, especially because it does look like they're just so far behind. Like, how would they not be able to fulfill that criteria? But it's just so funny how it works. Your companion side is just barely ahead of their companion token, and for that reason, it makes it so much less flexible for them.
100%. While that field reinforcements, I will say, is a very, very strong card for things like day one, where on day one, both players are tied, so field reinforcements become super duper efficient because it's a 2-cost 2/2/2 with the draw. Here, yeah, we only see that license withdrawal come out, and unfortunately for the Golrong, oh wait, no, they do still have 2 mana left. 2 mana is definitely enough. They could have something like an Aegis Templar, which we've seen, let's see, 1, 2 in the discard pile, so he could have another one. Oh, or we could have a Staff Clerk. Which
Staff Clerk barely not enough though. Just being a 1/1/1 for 2, it needed to come out a little bit sooner in order to get the value out of it. Phobia will take that on the Itshadi, barely able to edge out Zoka 54 there. Impressive.
Yeah, that's a situation where hindsight's 20/20, because if that Staff Clerk had come out and created a recruit from Phobia playing that Bouncer from reserve, then he would have had enough stats to go over, but unfortunately he was one off in water.
Brutal. paandyandy, anything that you have to say about that game back from the kitchen?
That was like super crazy. Actually, it was like super interesting, because when we start to go into the match, I was like, hey, both of those decks actually have like a really, really good chance to show off because of like just like the general slow play, right? I mean, an Atsadi could potentially actually just like start, and as we saw it like in the earlier state, to just like progress easily, but Golrong still got like many abilities or just like effects in general for the cards going to be played to just like stall a little bit out of that, but it seems like it was not working. I mean, the Sakara, I think it's the most unfair card after the Small Step Giant Leap before the Altered. And it's actually just like, how do I still play Rune? I don't know.
No.
Rune. Yeah.
That Sakurabu was incredibly
Yeah.
fair. That was a 7 mana 4/4/4. I think that's as fair as it gets.
I mean, you know what? I mean, it's just like a general effect, right? But of course, like for 7 mana, it's like going to be up that. I mean, we could like talk a little bit closer about, okay, what is 7 mana compared to like a Gorang deck, if you're comparing it with an Adzadi deck? What is like all the mana thing about, right? But just like kidding by that, it was a super interesting game, and I'm actually super happy to see like how Gorang do actually in general during set 3, right? Because in set 2 we got like some dedicated player that also did like some really good results, but I think with all like the new cards that going to be added during set 3, it was just like super duper amazing to see. And Runefolk asking, how do I win late game versus goal rank? And I mean, this is a good question, Rune, and let me tell you this. So first of all, just remove the permanence and you will be fine. No, but actually what I'm feeling sometimes against a late game goal rank, it depends on what to actually play. The easiest way to face against a Gorang, or what I'm doing personally if I'm playing against Gorang, and maybe I can just like show it like during the tournament. Gorang usually needs to use like a lot of resources at some point, just like to going to this certain spot, right? So if you're being able to just like slow down the resources, just like to raid out, then it's like, I would say it's like super cool to play around with that. I mean, for Adzadi, especially if you're playing Adzadi, I don't have like any clue because I'm not like an Adzadi player, right? But it's just like sabotaging, making sure that Gorang needs to use all of the resources from this and that. Can't I just hostage them? That seems the easiest. Yeah, okay. I mean, you can also hostage them basically. But yeah, anyway. It was a super game to watch, super interesting. Congrats to Phobia, also the winner of the A-Streak 2, as Korabi mentioned in the chat. And yes, Rifted, I can quickly just like see if there are like any other games still up. Until then, do you have like any other questions, guys?
Yeah, I could definitely add in as well, though, for both of these players, interestingly enough. I think these are heroes that got so much of a leg up from the most recent set that it's like orders of magnitude better. I remember back in the day actually doing some practice games, that Ashadi versus Ephanis match with Phobia specifically, and testing it out. It felt like the deck had a lot of things that were actually working really well and synergistic for it, but it just didn't have enough early power level related cards, I would say, in a lot of cases, to make that worthwhile. And finally, it does feel like that there is the power level to really enable all that synergistic playstyle to come together. And actually, same goes for Golrang in general. I think it was mostly the player Gino from the Netherlands who was having success with it at all in set 2. And I think that's definitely very, very different now. I think we've nearly doubled the amount of 39 cards results of that hero over just these last couple weeks. So I'm, happy to see it. The heroes that were less popular becoming good is always really exciting.
Me too. And I will say, if you guys are looking for another table, 52 is currently 57% progress, and it is pretty exciting what's going on here.
Yeah, then reach Subcribe in. And Rune, do you have like any suggestions how to actually face against a Gorang? Maybe you can let us know in the chat, because I remember you also played like a kind of hostage. I mean, almost every deck that you're playing is hostage, but you also played like an almost hostage list with Gorang. So explain us, tell us how could you do that? Tell us. And then you can focusing on the game, guys. I'm stopped talking. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it. One thing I'm interested to see here is the other style of Phobia's Adzadi deck lists, which is the Eat Me Energy Bar Sakarabu combo. But here we see something I was mentioning earlier, the Rare Scholars Vault Artifaction. Those Sakarabus are only costing him 5 here, which is crazy.
Yeah, the other thing I think is really sweet about that card is enabling that scout cost to get reduced as well from some of these more absurd scout plays.
It reduces everything.
Yeah, and meaning that you get to play out Theseus as a scout, like sort of as an after you for like 1 mana.
Basically,
it's so good.
Yeah. And you can just keep doing that over and over and over again. Not to mention, it even affects the reserve cost of your cards. So those Sakara brews sitting in at Sadi's reserve, not only can he keep them because Scholar's Vault lets you increase your reserve size, those Sakara brews are 2-cost 4/4/4s in and of themselves, which is pretty close to an after you, I would say. 2-cost 4/4/4 is really, really powerful.
And yeah, some mentioning of the card, the Hunger, in the chat there as a potential anti-Gulrang tool. In this case, it's actually, it feels like it would be a good card against the Ashadi's setup here, at least a way to break down multiple of these permanents at once and eat that reserve along with it. But unfortunately for Tasia, that is not a hero that can leverage that card. So yeah, they are a little bit at the mercy of some of the more absurd gameplay strategy here from the Ashadi.
We've got another Kappa overcosted unique that you were mentioning earlier. It's a 6-cost 2/5/6 with played from anywhere, draw a card, and when it leaves the expedition zone, you may pay 1, and if you do, put the top card of your deck in your mono zone. Very interesting unique.
Yeah, if we can get some Kappas in the chat for that Kappa that did get played out there, it's a pretty sweet one. It's very dissimilar, though, to the one that we did see from the previous Ashadi player. This one a lot more card advantage focused, but that additional ramp effect is absolutely something that they're always looking to do with that hero, so it also makes a lot of sense. And currently, they're seeing if they can out-contest on both sides compared to this Tasia. Tasia doing, their best effort at it, playing out a Sneezer Shroom as their final character of the day. Mana Flare getting played out. I have not seen that one enter play before. Whoa!
Yeah! Woo! We've got a Hunger coming out. How much does that cost him? That's, let's see, 1, 2, 3 less. He played that Hunger for 3 less mana. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, it discards his own cards, but that doesn't matter because Tasia doesn't have anything else they can do. It's fleeting because of Mana Flare. That's such an amazing combo. Wow!
Yeah, that is one of the most ridiculous finishes to a game that I've ever seen. Normally that would look so rough playing that out from hand and discarding your entire gameplay strategy just for the single advance so there. Fun. But because, exactly as you mentioned, that Mana Flare, it does give the character you play fleeting, which in this specific case is a massive upside, or a gigantic upside, we could say. That's a really cool one.
That was so satisfying. I loved that. That was so satisfying. Keep in mind, both players' timers were negative.
Really funny to see as well, because I recognize Living Plane from having played some Tasia in at least the previous set, and it was really funny because the list that they used to play was one that played a lot of like Loki uniques, and so I was expecting when we tabbed over to the table that that's what we'd be seeing, and then I saw Tasia and as one of the heroes there, and I was like, that's what's going on, and then I looked and I was like, wait a second, that is the Ashadi player. So always cool stuff coming out from them, it seems.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how the different heroes fare this set. Although I would like Equinox, if you are listening, to get some more Subash support next set, but we'll see. Wow, that was amazing. I'm loving that.
Yeah, I would also be I would be happy to see Subash get some additional support as well. I think one of the things that I have seen with that deck that did feel pretty crazy are some like Capelia uniques from set 1. I don't think we've had the pleasure of having this discussion yet, Astro, me and you, but I hate uniques from set 1. I think they all need to get blanket banned because they are way too absurd. However, I know there are a couple Capelias out there that work so well for the Subash strategy. The issue I have is that they're just so rare to find with the correct effects that it's not really something you can reliably get your hands on.
Yes, not to mention I do not actually have the most, I don't really have like a source of income or anything, so I don't really have much that I can do in the way of purchasing cards, not to mention trading them, since I don't buy a lot of cards, so I don't really have that many uniques to trade, not to mention good ones. So one of the things that unfortunately has not fared as good for me is that even though I have plenty of Axiom commons and stuff, I barely have any rares, especially from Trial by Frost. I literally have like 6 Axiom rares from that set. So
we have found our way. Yeah, that duck does mean the quack
That's amazing.
does mean that our round 3 is up. if it's cool with you, Astro, I'd love to jump into table 6. There's a player there
I was just looking at that. I already opened
very
it.
good. I was going to say one of these players is as close to it gets as a local player for me, outside of literally Freeloader, who's the only other like local player. So I'm always happy.
The table again. I'm so
6.
sorry. 6. Okay, you mean Zescrotch?
Yes, I am always happy.
Yeah, you can just.
I'm happy to jump into a Sasquatch 1879 game. They did play a lot of Axiom heroes in general previously, but it seems that they're currently settling on Fen, which is a hero that I love at the moment. Playing it into Afanis, though, and a really experienced one in Benhall from Team ALR, that's sort of a scary matchup for Fen, I'd say.
Yep. One thing that I'm very excited to see is a lot of the support effect style of play with Fen and Crowbar. I've always wanted to try Lyra because support effects are something that I've never really gotten, like specifically discard effects, not passport effects, are something that I really want to get into because I personally like having free effects at the cost of discarding a card from your reserve. I've always loved that concept of Altered because that's something pretty unique, is that since they have that reserve, they did something pretty cool with that reserve.
Yeah, and Fen is one of these heroes that does get to really... I don't think any deck leverages the reserve in a way similar to how Fen does at the moment, in that it's very multi-purpose. Like, oftentimes with a hero like Traced, for example, you're using it to just pump out cheaper characters that are still pretty well statted, for example. Lyra sort of does all of the things with it in a really interesting way. Sometimes it's spell recycling, like, for example, the supportability of this Hathor, which would let them, for example, return a magical training, or even this Tanuki if it plays out again. But also just the ability to, in general, discount your spells, or just cards in general, means that sometimes you get to enable some really ridiculous turns where you say after you again and again until your opponent passes, and then you get to make all your decisions, which is totally crazy.
Okay, now we're seeing a tie between Fen and Afanis, and Fen already having to discard cards from the reserve. One thing that thought brings up is the out-of-faction Tech Lab unit from Axiom. It being the rare 2-cost, I am excited to see how often it is used in Fen decks, given that they usually overfill their reserve.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I do think that that is one of the more likely cards that we would see from a Fen at this point, at least from the new set. It's worth mentioning as well, though, it's not entirely a guarantee that we were only going to see the discard support abilities. I do believe there's a couple new ones that have sometimes made their way into Lyra lists, with those passive support abilities, or as you call them, passport abilities, which I love. The passport ability of that Lyra Contortionist, for example, is the sort of thing that I would be expecting to see out of Fen at this point, or at least not at all surprised to. And it's nice, that one just hanging out in reserve here means that any Anansi that's played out later is just going to be that much larger, which is really nice.
100%. It is a very, very interesting card. It does have that usual that downside that you see in Lyra usually, which is a 0 stat in water, which, as you can see from Fen's reserve, that means that they are very much lacking in water stats right now.
Yeah, no, you're totally right on that. It's a little bit of an awkward situation because virtually everything thus far that I've seen from Fen is just begging to draw magical training. They're like, please let me draw magical training. I think that's really the most critical thing, not just in general for the deck at this point. At this point in the game, you just want to have one so badly, but especially playing into Afanis, it's going to be really hard if they're unable to find that, to find enough ways to off you go, and to otherwise just be efficient enough to deal with these threats, especially when the threats that do come out are things that just return spells or draw more cards for the Afanis while progressing.
Yep. Just like these classic Spindle Harvesters, which are usually pretty cheap, 1 cost, 2 cost, and only gain anchored from one source, from what I have seen, either from hand or from reserve. This one happens to be a 1 cost, 001 with a water stat rather than the regular plant stat. With from reserve, it gains anchored, and when it leaves the expedition zone, if it has 1 or more boosts, you may return a spell from your reserve to your hand, which is pretty bonkers given that any sort of magical training that they play would give them a boost, and then that automatically fulfills its condition in order to get that magical training back to their hand.
Yeah, this is truly a beautiful Spindle Harvester unique. Those 1 mana ones with that effect are just so good. And yeah, look at all these spells that are coming out now as well. They work so well with this strategy. Not only will they be drawing a card here at dusk, they're going to be picking up probably this magical training again when the Spindle Harvesters goes to reserve here, taking a double advance for their trouble. That's fair. That's fun.
Yep, that's pretty fun. I will admit, while it is pretty strong, as you say, those Spindle Harvesters from set 1 have pretty bonkers spell effects and things like, for example, the Ink Caster from Lyra being able to return a card from your reserve to your hand. While those effects are pretty strong in Afanas, I will say Sabotage can shut him down pretty quickly, or even Exhaust, because you know what, one thing that always confused me was why Lyra got all of Axiom's unexhaust stuff like Helonic Heater, and Vikie, and Puffin, and I have not seen like a single Puffin, or Helonic Heater, or Vikie in any, what's it called? Izmir deck ever. Like, I just don't see them played at all, and I wonder why.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in the case of Afanas specifically, it's because in general, the gameplay strategy is sort of linear with what you're looking to put into the deck for that. And in general, the flexibility you get out of just having more card advantage, for example, is better than the flexibility of being able to, say, like, play exhausted cards from your reserve. And for that reason, I think in a lot of cases, they're just going to be prioritizing just picking up more cards from their deck rather than looking to necessarily get the value out of something from their own reserve. Rime Frost, though, is a awesome one from set 2. Does come out here and prevents the Cloth Cocoon from being used this day. Interesting to see it choose the Cloth Cocoon. I'm wondering what they're going to be playing that worries about that card.
Remember, the Tanuki is only a 0 in water, so I'm pretty sure the Afanas is most likely just trying to play for that companion side, because with the lead in Altered, that's of course the biggest thing that you want to do is keep that lead, and so trading is something that effectively becomes your main miniature goal. In order to get to that larger goal of course, winning the game. That Sap Infusion getting a boost from the Rime Frost is also something notable, because once it gets one counter for being 3 cost from reserve, it's already become a 3 cost for 3 boosts. Now, the fact that it can gain 3 arcane counters means that just from 2 more spells, it'll already give 5 boosts from a 3 cost spell if you count Afanas, which would technically be 6. So very strong card.
Tinkerbell Unique getting played out from hand here. Interestingly enough,
Wow.
It does have a Sabotage from hand effect on that Tinkerbell, which is sort of funny. Not super commonly seen, I guess. It does have a support ability to potentially give a character fleeting, which does help make some of the removal options a little bit more live here. But otherwise, I'd say I really like their little mouse unique here that's currently in play, but I think this one's a little bit weaker. And yeah, this is the card that Cloth Cocoon Exhaust was setting up for. It was anchoring a Sneezer Shroom, which I have to say, this one is much higher power level.
Yep, at dusk, if I have 1 or more boosts to draw a card, if this Afanas has anything like meditation training, or maybe even possibly some sleep, we could see that they very well draw 2, maybe even 3 cards from this one Sneezer Shroom.
No, you're totally right. It's definitely possible, and even if it ends up just being like this Rime Frost gets played out again for no value, it's going to be really good. It would actually be value, not just no value. Off you go, though. Even better, that does put the requisite 1 counter onto the Sneezer Shroom in order to draw a card here at dusk, and removes that Tinkerbell. Afanas now finding themselves 3 progressions up on the Fen, and yet again, I'm going to say it yet again, they need to find magical training. That's the one thing that Fen really needs in order to be at all live in this game.
Yep. They've got the Hathor, which I have seen combo really well with the magical training, so I'm hoping that they draw it soon because they're in a very far position behind the Afanas. One thing that I am interested to see is, oh, there's one of those Hathors again. One thing that I like to see with this Fen is they are actually playing it pretty well, trying to get rid of as many characters as possible for this Afanas, because Afanas without characters cannot really put that many stats on the board, and as we all know, Afanas decks typically consist of many spells, so if you do get rid of all of his characters, then it is quite difficult for him to regain them.
Yeah, Afanas has one of those hero abilities that, sort of like Waru in some way, requires you to play a certain amount of things in your deck. And in this case, for Waru, that would be bureaucrats, but in the case of Afanas, it's both characters and spells, where you need the correct mix of them in order to be able to effectively use that hero ability and get value out of it. In this case, that typically means that you do run a little bit character light on Afanas. You play sort of just enough, and then a couple supplementary things like this Moth to a Flame that does get played out here, which do sort of give you a pseudo character and a spell, which definitely helps shore up that character count while giving you enough spells that you're regularly boosting your other things. But exactly as you say, sometimes prioritizing getting rid of those characters can be a good way to combat that hero. But unfortunately, here for our Fen, Sleight of Hand, it's going to be nice in that they will be able to pick up something that lets them potentially sabotage if that's what they're looking for, but not being able to use that more effectively and find something like a potential magical training off of it, that's really bad.
Yeah, I will say though, Sleight of Hand does fulfill at least that thing with magical training, which is in which it is a 1 cost after you. Not to mention with this Hathor. Oh, unfortunately the Hathor is exhausted right now, but if the Hathor was not exhausted, he would be able to bring that Sleight of Hand back into his hand and use it once again as another 1 cost after you, similar to how you would use magical training in order to draw cards repeatedly with Hathor.
It was interesting. Until that play came out, we didn't have like full information of what the Fen was working with, and if I had to guess why it looked so clunky for them, my guess was going to be that they were trying to figure out a way where they would be able to sneak down an Aloe Vera underneath a potential Off You Go, and were unable to do so. And that is sometimes one of these dynamics in the Izmir matchup specifically for Fen, where your game plan can look a little bit clunky when you're trying to enable that. But in this case, I think it was just really about not having the synergy pieces that were necessary in order to enable the rest of the game plan. It's not a situation where Fen, for example, chose to mana something like an Aloe Vera that they were unable to sneak down, because that hero ability does not let you choose what you're manaing. You are at the mercy of whatever you draw.
100%. One thing that I'm interested to see is why they chose to put that Anansi on that side. It could have to do with biomes, but we'll just have to see. One thing I'm interested in seeing is why they decided to put the mouse in hand, because the mouse had a very interesting support effect where I believe it was the next card you play this afternoon, this turn costs 1 less. So that could have been useful in that he could have played the Anansi on the companion side and then possibly played something else like that Tinkerbell into the hero side. So I'm interested to see why they chose the Sabotage over getting that double advance.
I think in general, the reason why that Anansi ended up getting played the hero side is because they've already made progressions on that side, meaning that a later in the game progression will be a little bit easier to get from your expedition that does already have, or does still have rather, the 3 region types of that starting region.
I see.
Whereas it didn't really matter which side the opponent was progressing on, presumably, given that they were leaving a single terrain regardless of which side it was that they let progress. Yep. But you never know. It is one of these things where sometimes Fen does really care about what specific single region type that the opponent rather will end up on, given the number of split stat characters, things like this Hathor, for example, which cannot contest at all on water. And I think that's the other reason why they potentially were happy to let their opponent progress off of that water expedition on the companion side, given that now that Hathor is contesting even better.
Yeah, not to mention, one thing that I missed earlier was that Pasiphae is going to be very interesting depending on how what kind of... Oh, Pasiphae's gone, never mind, here comes a different unique. We've got a red 2 cost 1/1 with Season, and when it leaves the expedition zone, if it has 2 or more boosts, you may return a spell from your reserve to your hand. With From Hand, I gain 1 boost. Very, very interesting. Huh. It has Seasoned too. I will say that is a pretty strong unique, especially when played from hand. We've got a Category Mage Dancer rare being played, which means that at dusk, if it has 3 or more boosts, the Afanas gets to draw a card. Again, drawing cards is a staple of Afanas by utilizing the boosts that he gets from all of his spells. Oh, this is a rough spot for Fen because, unfortunately, they've only got 1 Hathor as a character left in reserve, and if they do end up using it for its support effect, then they might just have a Cloth Cocoon and Sleight of Hand to work with.
Yeah, this is sort of a brutal spot, I would say, for the Fen. I get it. Sometimes you draw the wrong half of your deck, and I think that's exactly what's happened here, really. I think into Afanas specifically, the single most important card that you need to find is Magical Training, and you're essentially, you have a very high chance of seeing the card in, literally by day 2 or 3. playing Fen or playing any hero as far as that's concerned. If you're looking for a specific card, by like day 2, you typically have like a 50% chance of having at least seen the card between your opener and then the additional cards that you see or draw. Definitely not finding that here. That's really important because the entire gameplay strategy, especially as far as this matchup is concerned, is typically it just revolves around looping magical training. At least being able to after you can be one of the only ways of dealing with the fact that Afanas is just so efficient when playing out cards like Katagiri and Mage Dancer, and then uniques that give additional card value. So that can be one of the only ways to go over the top with things like Anansi as well. But unable to find that, and then also unable to find a removal spell like an Off You Go or a Requiem. Both of those can be particularly good into the matchup, and they're sort of necessary finds, I would say, when your opponent does get all of these uniques out that do have that boost restriction as well. So a timely removal spell could potentially get rid of it before it would be able to generate value, but unable to do that either, it's brutal. The Fen, unfortunately for them, drew none of what they were looking for the matchup.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like this might be GG because with the Beauty Sleep from Reserve and the boost, Afanas is looking to take this double advancement, and unfortunately, there is nothing that Fen can do. Because with that boost onto that Moth, he double advances, and the Fen, unfortunately, just loses because in this matchup, as you said, without that magical training, it is pretty difficult to keep up with Afanas because he just sets a pace that almost ironically no other aggro hero can match. When it comes to things, like one thing about Afanas that I feel like they kind of oversought is that when it comes to Afanas being a boosting character versus things like Basira and Tasia and even other aggro heroes like Subash and Kojo, when it comes to Afanas, they really thought, and I believe they've said this before in an article that I read, they thought that it would be a lot harder to strike a good balance between the characters and spells in a deck when you're building for Afanas, and they were expecting it to be they were expecting his weakness to really be those lower number of characters and prioritizing those spells over characters. But the thing is, with all of these high efficiency spells, like as you said, magical training, this Moth to a Flame specifically, it makes it so easy to get a really, really good balance of still having plenty of characters and plenty of spells. And where Afanas doesn't really need to play permanence, unlike, for example, in D-Way with Baba's Eastbound Orders Carrier, that means that he can simply be he can simply stay with just having spells and characters in his deck. And of course, spells not only can be used for offense, they can also be used for removal, because as you said, things like Banishing Gate are super duper useful for just removing any target, and not to mention giving up the boost from Afanas.
I totally agree. I think you've hit the nail on the head with that. It's a really flexible gameplay strategy overall. And I think it's also been cool, though, seeing that, Afanas is maybe still a top dog deck, and it definitely was, like, towards the beginning of the last set. But notably enough, there are a lot of new includes here that we did get to see this game as well, even if they were just entering reserve and then leaving again. Sap Infusion, for example, was being played at Common, which is pretty cool to see. There's a Pasiphae in there, which was also pretty neat. It can be really good, especially into some of the weaker things, I'd say, or like weaker matchups for Afanas, things like Sigismar, when your opponent is going wide, making lots of characters, being able to gain a boost per character that the opponent controls can be really efficient. And otherwise, license withdrawal at rare then is also a new sweet include. But yeah, overall, I would say deck is still looking very strong. And maybe, Paandy, do you agree?
I'm agree, yeah. You know, the most time when you're asking a question, I need to answer a question.
Yeah, don't
It's
worry
the
about
classic.
Super on time. No, but actually, super interesting to see that the Afanas take over the game against Fen. I mean, it's like not that super surprisingly, because if you would ask like a dedicated Fen player, he would say Afanas, really, really hard matchup. But I felt like that this matchup was like a little bit getting more fairness during the upcoming set. But as you can see, Afanas still can take the game. I think like in general, it's like super fun to see how like, I would say basically the old meta decks that usually also got to be played in Season 1 and Season 2 struck it in the first weeks, are also like on almost every end of season tournament, right? And now just like claiming back the spot. So I'm super interested now in general how it will feel like going to be. the first thing that I actually mentioned about the fan is actually it was one of the first decks that I actually seeing using uniques from set 3. And this is like super interesting because the little mouse with the sabotage effect is like super cool, but also just like a little bit helpful for Afanas, just like grabbing out more resources if it comes like to this way. And I mean, the Afanas actually use like the baseline up for every spell, for every card, and it usually go to play. License Rifle Troll is like a super cool card, also like the Zap Infusion, where I feel like the Zap Infusion actually played as common, also seeing it like in the rare version. It's like super interesting how this card is going to be, because I feel like the Zap Infusion is the new helping hand without losing fleeting. But with the same amount of boost that you can basically give. Yes.
Yeah, I'm definitely someone who's said before, I don't think Helping Hand was the nerf that hero needed if that hero did need a nerf. And every time that I see Afanas winning via doing something super abusive in general of either uniques or just the hero ability in general, or other one-cost spells which are just as good as Helping Hand, I just feel that much more validated in my opinion that Helping Hand was not the problem. I think maybe a lot of other things were the problem, or just in general the gameplay strategy, the hero itself. But Helping Hand at least does remove the possibility of just playing the same character again and again the entire game.
Yeah,
like one
it was
single
pretty
character.
annoying when those Spindle Harvesters with specifically the reserve effect to gain anchored, those were pretty annoying to play against. And removing Helping Hand does help in somewhat, but one thing that I really think they should have gotten rid of, or at least like just targeted, is the Spindle Harvesters uniques themselves, because most of the Helping Hands were used for those Spindle Harvesters. So the real problem is the Spindle Harvesters, not the Helping Hands that are just making them even more powerful. Because obviously the Spindle Harvesters that gain anchored, and like, the ones that are at dusk, return a spell from your reserve to your hand, or when I leave the expedition zone, return a spell from your reserve to your hand, it was just absolutely broken for Afanas specifically, because the whole thing about Izmir is that spells cost cheaper from hand. Sap Infusion, Magical Training, you've got the Anchor one, Meditation Training, you've got so many cards and specifically spells that are cheaper from hand. So just being able to return spells to your hand not only makes them cheaper, but also takes them out of the threshold for things like Sabotage and Exhaust. So I just feel like those Spindle Harvesters uniques, for being as cheap as they are, specifically this one cost one that we saw in this game, that's just like insane value that I think they definitely should have banned, just like they did for like Moonlight Jellyfish and Axiom. They did it for the Ozma unique. Did they do it for the Ozma uniques or just the rare and common? I can't remember.
I think rare and common. The uniques were fine. Yep.
Yeah, the uniques were fine.
It's just like a super green point on that like there are like so many actually things that's going super wrong with Afanas. Because I would say you can actually remove the Helping Hand, right? Then you have like still 30 other cards that going to be on play. Even if you would just like start to suspend or irritate like every other spell that is like 1 or 2 cost,
no.
it's still like the fact. No. But it's still like the fact that actually just like the ability by Afanas himself is like super crazy time of use, because if you would go like to other decks and you would like actually start thinking about like a boost condition beside like Muna, that's like being more known for just like basically giving out a boost for the first character to play, it's like super easy for Afanas to activate like all those uniques. So that's why I'm also saying like it's like you're getting like more values out of like any kind of uniques in this deck, except some other cards for like other uniques. So this is like one of the upset points, and I'm always like, you can actually just like recreate every card, but the just like the hero ability by themselves is just like super strong, and I hope there will be like a solution for the upcoming set, because I hope that we're not just like getting random new champions or like heroes all the time, but also that maybe we're getting like re-inverted versions of the heroes that are actually just like growing or actually start to getting more bad with the story. Because I mean, Afanas is an old man, and all those expeditions that he needs to go, I mean,
no, that's what I've been saying. I've mentioned it on Hero's Guide to Asgartha podcast. I've mentioned it elsewhere. I'd love it if Altered or Equinox start making their heroes older when they are too competitively good, and then eventually killing them off. Why not? It would be awesome. But Otherwise, actually that would have solved both the Athanas problem and the Waru problem without having had to change anything else. However, regardless, what I did want to say though very quickly was that I did think though that potentially this was a really good change on Helping Hand specifically when it comes to casual gameplay, because I do think, maybe us competitive players might realize like it changes very little for competitive play whether Helping Hand is the card that's gotten rid of or not, when realistically in order to play into Athanas you're going to need a combination of like removal plus sabotage effects at the right time, regardless of whether Helping Hand is a thing. But for casual play specifically, it does feel really bad when your opponent plays literally one unique and then one other card and then loops those two things the entire game, and it's unwinnable for you at that point, especially if you do not have that right combination of removal plus sabotage. And I do think that is a unique to Helping Hand problem for casual play specifically. I think the rest of us competitive sweats will recognize like, it doesn't matter, like you picked one random card out of the 30 that are a problem for the strategy, but as far as casual play is concerned, it wasn't a random card. That one mattered.
And the Waru problem is diabrical, and it's true, Victor. I mean, maybe we're getting like a newer version of Waru. It's just like a young, I don't know, like a young friend, like maybe like the son of Waru or something like that. I'm not deep into that story. And then maybe the son can decide if the bureaucrat's actually going to sleep. I think this would be the biggest change. This would be the biggest change. Hear me out, guys. Please.
I mean, wouldn't that make him a little too similar to Waru?
Yes. I mean, it's like a son, right? So. No, but actually, it's just like I'm super excited. Like I'm still super fine with like most of the effects that actually heroes have, right? But I think sometimes just like to reuse some similar effects, also helping out new players, or also like experienced players, that you don't need to always figuring out like a whole new year of Altered, right? So this would be like super sad. I feel like for other card games, I mean, if you have like super broken stuff, then yeah, surely just like ban it, like totally easy, just like ban it and suspend it. But in general, I'm super happy always if you actually just like start to stick on your roots, and then not you going back after 2 years and then you're being like, hold on, what's happened with the game? And what is like, hello? Like in Magic, when you have like each set actually adding like 20 new abilities and 20 new cards, and then you're being like, okay, now I can choose between 400 effects what to play. So it's like super thing. Actually wanted to say I started to join on the last table from La Truhel and SUD, also a new team as it seems, war cards here on the stream. Yes.
Yeah, not super familiar with that team. A lot of them have popped up in a ton of different places, and I cannot keep track of them all. I've briefly, I've done some attempts in the past to do so, but getting in touch with all of the teams at that point was proving its own challenge, especially when they wouldn't write me back, darn it. But no, in general, there's a ton of teams popping up to the level where we can't keep track of all of them. That's totally okay. It's just awesome to see in general, people enjoying the game. And creating teams with their friends for the most part. Love that.
Yep. Honestly, I feel like Altered is definitely one of those newer card games that's pretty accessible, because I would know it's my first card game ever. So I'm surprised how I got so into it like so early on, and I'm honestly grateful for that, because it's been such a joy getting to know different kinds of people and finally get out of the house and just like have fun playing games both physically and digitally. That's another aspect that I love. It makes it super duper accessible. And one thing that I am really, really grateful for is the fact that they're super open about their different communications with when they're going to be changing cards, nerfing cards, and their introduction of print on demand, like the late delay, like them informing us about that. That's super helpful. And it honestly just, it's been so much fun. I honestly can't say that I've really had any negative experience playing Altered, because Altered is so much fun that when I play a game of Altered, I don't even feel bad if I lose, because I'm like, wow, that opponent had a really cool unique, or wow, he had a really cool deck list. Like, I just feel happy when I'm playing Altered. They nailed like the amount of like, what's it called, the balance between like cards not being too OP and like the variety of different heroes that you can play. It just feels so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been a lot of like general crying about balance in general, which you expect for virtually any game that's especially on an online arena this day and
Yeah.
age. But realistically, the balance of this game has been very, very good, considering, at least with my experience with other card games and like online card games as well. Typically, metas are super defined by like one main deck, and then maybe like three that fall significantly below that level. And at least for the moment, we haven't had many situations outside of maybe what I'm going to call like Waru Autumn with Robin Hood still in the game. Outside of that, it hasn't been that. We have seen dominance from Afanas and Sigismar, for example, but they were both contesting that top dog spot pretty clearly, and in a way where there was some metagaming that was still being done. And the rest of the decks that were good at that point were all a reasonably high tier as well. Like, I wasn't at all surprised to see, say, a Fen spiking a tournament result, or a Kojo, or something entirely different to those. So I think that's definitely a nice sign as far as balance is concerned in general. And I think things are only getting better with some of the weaker heroes, like what we've been seeing earlier today. Chadi playing well, Golrang having so many more results. Like, I think things are really good for the game, especially as far as the gameplay experience and overall balance is concerned.
Yep. Honestly, if you compare it to other games and even non-card games, other like video games and computer games in general, Altered is pretty balanced. And one thing that I will mention is just being able to cast. Like, I was not expecting when I started my Altered journey to be here casting for live events with, I don't know, 50 something people watching. Like, honestly, this is super duper exciting. And the fact that I'm just a random kid from a random city, and I don't have any online presence whatsoever, and the fact that I'm able to join this community, the fact that I'm able to do this, it just shows wonders. It like really shows you how important it is for anyone in for anyone who is like me for example. I was not involved in really anything before Altered, and being a part of Altered, like, it's sort of become a part of my life that I'm just so happy. Like, I'm just happy to be here.
Hell yeah, I totally agree with that. That's super cool. Another good thing to mention as well, we were mentioning the team tag on our Sierra player down on the bottom here, the SUD. Just in general, I would also say joining a group of people can also be really effective if you are in actually a position really similar to yours, Astro. If you don't have the cash for a bunch of really high-level competitive uniques, maybe joining a group of players is a good way to get some access to them, so you can try out different things. And that's definitely one of these upsides of playing the game with a bunch of friends, not just on your own. Lets you try out a lot of different things, borrow some cards.
Yep. I mean, I cannot speak for how much worse off I would be without my brother. He has, like, us just being able to buy cards and trade amongst ourselves, like, we're getting the same amount of cards per person, but because we kind of treat it as a shared collection, where whenever I get Bravo's cards, he gets them on his Altered account, and whenever he gets Axiom cards, he gets them we put them on my account. And then
So good.
Other factions, we basically just trade them out for Axiom and Bravo, since we don't really have that many cards and we want to have a full play set of the factions that we do play.
No, that's definitely an efficient way of doing it, especially if you really are that committed to the one faction. I know for me, it wouldn't be me. I like to hop around a little bit. I've found that over time, I think both Izmir and Lyra are my factions of choice, but I think that's also just because of the card Magical Training, which actually the Afanas player is playing as we speak.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Any faction that plays Magical Training is typically one that I'm pretty happy to be playing myself, but overall, I like hopping around a little bit, and so in general, it's then nice when I do hop around somewhere to be like, hey, can I borrow a couple cards from you guys when it comes to my buddies over at Team AQZ? So I would say definitely worth looking into team stuff, and especially if you have a group of friends who like playing the game regularly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I haven't really met anyone really my age yet, but hopefully my brother and I can meet some people. Maybe we could do something online. We'll see. And the next round is definitely starting, because that, as we could see, had like 30 different spectators, because it was the final game and it just reached tournament maximum time.
Indeed. And I think this time it's going to be your call as to what table we're jumping into again.
Alrighty then. Honestly, I'm not familiar with a lot of these names, but I'm just going to base off of one that looks fun to me. So I think I'm going to go to table 36. because I like that this
Stable
guy has a
36?
logo as a profile
All
picture.
right. All right.
Yeah, 36.
36.
Nice.
So also now for the 4th round, the player actually getting access to our adventure pass, thanks to our sponsor Man of Games, that he is providing the adventure pass. Actually, a small fun fact for the stream, because of Man of Games, we actually also was the first tournament that actually could get access to the adventure pass. So super amazing that he is working with us together since season 1 basically. But he's also basically my local store owner, so always nice to have that.
Nice.
And he's also playing today, so super cool.
Yeah.
And talking about that, the game of Table 46 started, so have fun with round 4.
Yeah, thank you. This is a matchup that we have not seen yet, Reen versus Nevenka. I'm pretty excited to see this here because there are a few archetypes that I've really been wanting to watch Nevenka's play.
Yeah, definitely a couple of the more colorful heroes here in the game in general, and not always the ones that we're most often seeing in the Tumult. But hey, they're pretty cool, respectively. Interesting card here from the Rin player. This unique Saskia Sly Naturalist is actually a pretty sweet one. It has this ability when a card goes from their hand or deck to reserve, they can pay 1, and if they do, they give 2 boosts to a character in Forest. And then notably, of course, various other synergies with that forest progression stuff, thanks to both Rin hero ability, but as well as a subsequent ability on that Saskia. But specifically, when that card goes from your hand or deck to reserve effect, this is a hero that sort of like, actually in some cases, some like Axiom heroes even, can sometimes make use of that unique ability to get a ton of extra value thanks to the Rin hero ability. It's a pretty special one, and yeah, can be super synergistic.
Yep, I've also seen it on plenty of Repotter Otter uniques, which out of faction and Axiom have ruined my day. I once faced a trace that had 2 Repotter Otters, which were word for word the same unique, except one had 1 more mountain stat.
Is that Popiette Otters?
Yep, it was. Yep.
Yep. Sounds about right.
They're getting their own name. Yep.
One of my favorite part about Popiette Otters is that Popiette actually named their Twitch account around them. So their Twitch account is like Otter_Popiette2Vo or whatever, which is the rest of their username. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, regardless,
he's
no
not trading
Axiom.
them away for anything.
Exactly, definitely not. They're pretty sweet and very clearly part of their player identity. But yeah, back to this game at least, there's no Axiom hero here, just that cool Saskia yet again getting played out on the companion side. Currently, Nevenka a little bit up on the Tumult, liking their position thus far.
100%. This new Tierlist archetype that I've been seeing Nevenka's play is honestly one of the most, I would say, powerful contenders when it comes to card draw and card advantage with things like Afanas and stuff. Because Nevenka does get that free boost, it's really easy for them to get the boost onto the Tierlist from hand, not just from reserve. And so having that 2-cost 3/1/3 with the boost that also almost like 70-80% chance of drawing a card is really strong. And of course the rare makes it so that not only can you draw characters, you can now also draw spells because it's artists or songs. So I would like to see whether they're only running common Tierlists or whether they have a rare or 2.
So interestingly enough, we do have a really cool decision point for Nevenka, actually. They did roll the die here, and because they did have that rare Martingale, they can add 1 to the potential result, and it was a 5, meaning that they got to choose whether they were looking for either a boost to potentially go over on that hero side, or even the companion side, and or versus that, or anchoring. And they did choose to anchor their Martingale and give up a double progression here, actually, to the Rin player. Meaning that actually things are looking a lot better for Rin than I was expecting, especially after seeing that Bliss Guitarist come out on the hero side. But at least there's that Martingale sticking around for later for Nevenka.
Yeah, I will say that Martingale gives Nevenka a lot of options, specifically guaranteeing that they are not going to be sending any of their own cards to reserve by rolling a 1. And that Capalia from hand from the Reen also means that they missed out on the opportunity to put it in reserve from their ability and have it possibly played for free, but it could be that they just didn't have any other 2-mana options available. One thing that I was interested in the decision for Nevenka for anchoring was that it's not just the boost versus anchor, it's also what to anchor. For example, anchoring that Bliss Guitarist as a 3/1/3, given that both of the players are currently in plant, also would have been an amazing option because they would have been at 3 right now. So I want to see what specifically they want that Martingale adding 1 for dice rolling, what they would use it for.
I love this, though, just seeing both players battle on that hero side when both of these heroes seem so well positioned to actually fight on that forest terrain. This is going to be a pretty fun turn, actually, specifically because both of these characters line up perfectly with one another. Haven Seringar, Capelia, 2 cost each with 3 mana remaining for each player. I wonder who's going to come out on top on that hero side.
Yeah, it all comes down to the different cards that they have in their hand. When you look at faction advantage, however, I will say Muna typically has an advantage when it comes to plant. But you gotta remember, there's actually a lot of out-of-factions from Muna that are in Lyra. So just like this Haven Seringar is an out-of-faction from Bravos and has that overstat in plant, we could see other cards from Muna that this Nevenka is playing with that overstat in plant. For example, there's a Persephone, which is also in Lyra, and so here we have it coming out on from Reen, and I would not be surprised if... Oh, Izmir Engraver, that's interesting one. You may spend 1 of my boosts to discard target character or permanent with hand cost 2 or less, because it is the rare. So, I'm sorry, I got a little bit mixed up there. Yes, I was talking about the Persephone and stuff. Wait, do they just tie? Oh no, he's got another Martingale.
Oh, wow. Depending on this die roll as well. Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
That's a double progression. Impressive day for Nevenka there, actually. It was looking a little dicey for a bit, but I mean, I think but
you're good with puns. I love it.
But luckily, the die roll was good thanks to, well, it couldn't have been bad, really, thanks to the Martingales that were currently in play at that point. They could have potentially hoped for an anchor if they wanted that instead, but taking a double advance is pretty good, especially because at this stage, I think Rin is really reliant on making use of their hero ability. Cards like Persephone play super well with that, meaning that regardless of what region they're actually on, it becomes forest and they would be able to trigger that hero ability with the progression there. But unable to do that means, being unable to do that means that they're going to maybe struggle a little bit more when it comes to just card advantage.
Yeah, one thing that I will mention is that I'm surprised on the decision of the Nevenka to get rid of the Engraver versus the Seringar, because Seringar currently will only be able to give them 1 stat on either side, so it could be that they end up just not playing it. So, oh, that Tanuki does get rid of the Persephone from reserve, which unfortunately being a 2 cost from reserve means that that very powerful card is now just going to be discarded. And with Nevenka in the lead, I will say they're in a very good spot right now, because they could end up playing the Martingale and Seringar from reserve, or perhaps even using the support effect of Martingale in order to have possibly effectively 4 mana.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the one thing that's, I guess, a little bit redeeming here for Rin is the fact that the expeditions that Nevenka is looking to progress on are not the most comfortable as of yet, at least. Of course, Tanuki does a pretty good job contesting on the hero side, given that it does at least threaten to progress on the mountain expedition itself that they're looking to progress on, and does block the forest of Rin's pretty well. But otherwise, it could be pretty easy to block potentially just on mountain water. And then otherwise, the other side, yeah, there's currently nothing, at least that we can see, that Nevenka would be able to contest a single stat point on the purely water terrain on. So that's at least a little bit redeeming for them. Daughter of Yggdrasil, though, notably, this is the common. It does just draw Nevenka a card. There's no mutual card draw here.
Yeah, and one thing that I would like to point out is that I feel like Reen is basically using that to her advantage, knowing that Nevenka does not have many water stats available to them. They're playing that Daughter of Yggdrasil on the companion side, despite it only being a regular stat. Daughter of Yggdrasil's only regular stat, given that it's overstated in the other 2. And most likely Reen is just trying to take advantage of the free advancement, given that Nevenka is lacking those water stats. I'm expecting both players to pass here, because it's looking like the trade is going to be in Nevenka's favor, since they are effectively drawing 2 cards, one from Seringar and one from the, Daughter of Yggdrasil.
And notably as well, given that there was nothing contesting at all on that hero side, they get a free die roll, meaning that they get to, that potential 1 out of 6 chance of having an anchored character. And if they did lose the die roll, it wouldn't have mattered. They would have progressed anyway. But no, they just hit an irrelevant stat boost there. And they find their way into the next day, currently up still that 1 expedition from earlier. And exactly as you mentioned, a super efficient turn for Nevenka, given the number of cards they drew. Rin's not quite out of it, though, just yet. they have a pretty good chance of being able to contest, but I think the hardest part is at this point for them that the cards that they typically have access to that are strong on the Tumult have the little bit of a weakness in that water stat line, just like that Daughter of Yggdrasil that we were seeing the last day, and that is now what the Nevenka is going to be contesting on for presumably the rest of the game.
Yep. It looks like unless this Reen has, for example, things like maybe the out-of-faction from Lyra Will of Wisp, or Will of the Wisp, sorry. It's not like looking very easy for them to contest it. And one thing that in Altered is very, very important is for the order of the turns. And on this turn, it is looking like Reen is going to be going first. And by playing that Daughter of Yggdrasil, yeah, they get plenty of stats on that side, but they've also just lost 3 mana, while Nevenka can counter with a simple After You with that 1 mana Martingale.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's a really good point to make as well. The power of just being able to After You here when your opponent will need to virtually commit everything to the Tumult and they're not sure whether they'll be able to contest one, let alone both expeditions, and realistically needing to do so. Yeah, hard position for Rin, especially given those cheap plays available from Nevenka. I'll be interested to see here if there's anything else that could come out from Rin that could potentially change things. I'm wondering if there's uniques that could be potentially at play, or otherwise like really cheap removal effects on things. But ooh, we do have a sweet unique. Yeah. This one's a Tolarian Skater.
Yep. Okay, you take this one.
No, fair enough. I was waiting for you, but then it wasn't coming, so I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, it does retain that Scout 1 keyword, which is pretty important. Oftentimes I've seen a lot of uniques be missing that, despite really seeming like they would need the Scout 1. In this case, it is sort of just an After You that does give the boost, the classic Tolarian Skater sort of effect. And then potentially when played from reserve, it's a character plus sort of a removal effect or a pseudo removal effect and giving something a sleep. So that is a little bit of an upside. I do believe that we might have just had a disconnect from our co-commentator Astra there. But while we're waiting for them, I'm happy to continue, or otherwise paandyandy can jump in. Paandy, tell me about this sweet Nevenka unique.
Okay, so this unique is like super crazy because it's like one of those mages, especially it's like not the one that usually going to be in play, that you roll a dice and then you can basically just like return a character. It's also just like about the fact that you can start to boost any character, so it's kind of a little bit better than like the rare version that usually maybe could be go to play, but I'm not sure. But it also has like the cool at dusk effect that you discard a card and then you can draw a card. And this is like, I would say, I'm not sure if you can say like the cheap version of like the returning dice cards, right? But it's just like that you can play out entirely different, because instead of returning everything, you can start to overboost your characters and maybe help with that. So yeah, it's like a super cool card from the Bravo setter actually. It's super nice to see him on Nevenka. And as it seems, he could actually, basically he could double progress now. Oh no, he can't.
Can you guys hear me?
We can
Yes,
hear you.
we can hear you.
Yeah, no, sorry. My Discord time went up, so I had to join by phone.
It's
strange.
It's okay. And do you want to continue? Can you continue casting with that?
Yeah, I can still continue casting. I'm just asking if the mic quality is clear enough.
It's a little worse, but I think it'll do.
Yeah, it's due. It do.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Is this round 5, by the way?
This is round 4.
Yeah, round 4.
This is round 4. Okay. Got it.
Yep.
Just making sure.
No worries. But yeah, interestingly enough, we did have a situation where Rin does survive. That Cloth Cocoon, pretty sure it could have gone after the non-sleeping but fleeting Tolarian Skater there, which would have, which should have at least, with the additional die roll, been able to seal the game. But unfortunately for them, they did not go for that line. And now they're in a position where, potentially there's a comeback chance for Rin still available.
Yeah, I can see all of that happening on my screen right now. And yeah, with the Capellia that gained a sleep and is now on the board for the Reen, it looks like they actually have a chance to at least put the stats to double advance, even if they don't have the right biomes in order to block Nevenka.
Yeah, interestingly enough, it also feels like that Capellia potentially would be better suited on the companion side, where it would be both blocking as well as threatening to progress. But we will see. That could be a dynamic where they're trying to entice plays onto the hero side still, and then with something like along the lines of a Persephone, just change the region types so it doesn't matter anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that potentially coming out of Rin here, as their play does seem to sort of telegraph some sort of effect along those lines. Potentially something like a Magic Beans or something there could additionally come out with a similar effect. But overall, I think things are still business as usual for Nevenka. A mixture of characters plus removal is probably all they need here to seal this one up.
Not to mention that Katakirian Mage Dancer is looking to be pretty good when it comes to the putting stats on the board, and even if it goes to tiebreaker, then the At Dusk ability lets them discard a card from reserve and draw a card, meaning that they can discard cards that they don't want and possibly get better cards for the tiebreaker.
I think the biggest worry at this point, though, for Nevenka is that if they do not have a removal effect that can go after just normal characters, not just things that are like already fleeting, anchored, or asleep, they are at risk of potentially losing the game themselves if they do get outstatted. Meaning that if they were playing a game where suddenly a Daughter of Yggdrasil just outstats what they're doing, they could suddenly be in a world of hurt. And interestingly enough, seeing what's coming out here from them as well, Haven Sarengar onto that forest expedition. But the problem is that they're at risk of getting double advanced on here, and things are still looking pretty okay for Rin on that regard. Muna Caregiver entering play as well onto the companion side means that they are reasonably well, I would say, well insulated against many characters that could come out from the Nevenka. Issue being, of course, we do not know where the stats are going to quite line up as far as the die roll is concerned.
Yes.
As it stands, the die roll could add up to 2 stats, potentially more, depending on other subsequent characters that are played. But with it being an Izmir Engraver, it looks like the expedition of choice to contest will be that hero side.
It should be, and I mean, with 3 mana left, Rin got like still plenty of options to just like start to block out the Expeditioner. So maybe just like also moving on, but still at the end, the Nevenka have the chance to just like roll a dice and also to just like go out to give 2 additional boosts. I mean, the worst thing is like rolling a 6, but it also could be like totally fine if it comes like to an overtime. Or like the worst case rolling 1, but as we can see, the Requiem would actually start to going to be played out, and with that actually start to going to remove, but I think with 2 mana, and if the Rin don't, okay, good, it's the Twinkle Twinkle, so Twinkle Twinkle will be played out, and I would say GG to the Nevenka.
Yeah, it's good timing to have the removal effect, sort of exactly what I was mentioning at the beginning of the day. A mixture of characters and removal is really optimal for taking this one down here. And notably, there is the pseudo removal for the Rin as well, with their own sleep effect, that beauty sleep. But unfortunately for them, because there were 2 characters on that hero side contesting, it's not enough on their own. So they will manage to secure the game, does the Nevenka at least.
Yeah.
Close one, though. Ended up being a bit of a nail-biter.
Yes. It was a super close game. It was super exciting to see. Also, Nevenka in a really, really cool spot, I would say, for like this set right now. Seeing more and more in action. I mean, there are like some other players that actually just like piloting the deck since season 1 and stick to that until the end. But seeing Nevenka right now in action, and also if we would just like take like a small view on the data of like other tournaments, also not doing that bad in this set, right? So super nice to see.
Cool, okay.
And as we can see, Nebula is back. Yeah, don't worry, it's all good. It's all good, it's all good. As long as you can still be there and we can listening to you, it's everything okay. Stuff like that can happen.
Yay,
don't worry.
going, guys.
So we're being almost in the end of round 4, and I mean, just like to talk in general, I think like this Nevenka decks are like super amazing, and I would say you have like, or what I thought recently was like 3 types of Nevenka lists. Actually, it was like the one that actually started focusing on just like increasing the dice numbers, right? Then you have like those classic ones that just like using the, how did you say it, Kellen? I remember you said the returning Nevenka's back in the days was the little sister of Athanos.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Yes.
No, you got it. That's exactly what I was gonna say. I really think
remember
that that outside of quite literally what
Yeah.
Gamma Knight was doing on that character, or that hero rather, in Nevenka, I truly think that the other like more successful way of playing that hero was virtually just like the little sister of Athanos. Pretty similar. Doesn't get you the boosts. Maybe you can roll dice and occasionally get some value here or there, but otherwise it really was just the Athanos' little
Yes.
sister with a more restrictive condition on the
Yeah.
uniques typically.
And then you can nothing add on to this point. But it was also just like crazy because those decks also working pretty well. But what I see is also like a third one where actually Nevenka starts to play around the new sets cards that also just like being more variable if they're entering with a boost. And then start to playing uniques that actually just like distributing boost every time you roll a dice. As we could saw right now with the one unique from the Bravos header. And those are like actually super cool decks that I'm super interested in how they will do well. Because I think like those Nevenka decks, because you still need to figuring out that we're being like on BGA. So I would say everything that like actually a program is started taking over, it could be like good, but it could also be worse. And I've seen so many times that in Nevenka actually in real life, it's so acting different. It was just like amazing to see. So I'm already super excited for the qualifiers. Do you join any qualifiers, guys? Are you planning to join any qualifiers?
I don't know, it depends on the time that I have that my parents allow me, of course, because they're always breathing down my neck. But I'm really hoping to join some, and I'm hoping that I hopefully can get some more time in the competitive scene, because especially lately, I've mostly been letting my brother do all the competitive stuff, because I kind of enjoy casting a lot more than like sweat playing. But I would still like to get back into that once I get a good Subash, or at least some sort of semblance of a good Axiom deck going. I might try Trace, but ironically I don't even have a single Ouroboros Bastion out of faction, so
okay, all right.
I'm missing a lot of rare cards from set 1 too, so
Okay, all right.
What I could say is, if need be, I'm sure there's some people that you know at this point, maybe through commentary, maybe including ourselves, who you could potentially borrow cards for at least the BGA qualifiers for. Because as Equinox has mentioned now, there will be multiple Boardgamesarena qualifiers for the World Championships, which is really exciting overall.
Yes, and it would
the final details of those are not out yet, but as is any tournament on BGA, they're free to play, so that'll be super fun, and I think they're going to be really exciting and pretty large events.
And also like one of the chances for me actually participating, because maybe, can I say it on stream? Yeah, maybe I can. It's like super. And so for me, it will be that I will go to the Essen qualifiers, but I already just like ask as well, like Rabbit. I don't want to. Yeah, the White Rabbit Community Game Store, if they're also just like want to need some help through the cast. And I said yes, so figuring out. So actually for me, it's like all about if I will be involved in the cast, or if not, I would be super amazed to play. But besides that, I mean, if we don't decide to cast the board games qualifiers for our own, then we're just like playing, right, Keelan? Or do we plan to cast it?
I will be doing at least one or the other, and I'm not really sure yet. I mean, myself, I am in the situation where, because of the country that I live in, I cannot get cards off of the marketplace, and that is hard for me because I like to be able to get cards I need off of the marketplace. So it really depends on my ability to get new cards, but if I'm able to get them and use them the way that I would like to for a competitive event, I will hopefully be playing, and otherwise, I mean, I'm always happy commentating in general, so even if I am just hanging around with some other lovely people and commentating the event, that should also be a pretty fun time.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, maybe I could send some cards to you through the marketplace, get them shipped to you. It is a possibility. And regarding the qualifiers, we might be able to go to the ones was it in Dallas, or?
Yeah, I think Dallas.
Yeah. In Dallas, yeah. So we're about a little, maybe over an hour away, and so we might be able to make it there, and then hopefully meet a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. So, and if not, then there's always the online qualifiers. But I'm really excited to see where it goes for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm also super excited for that. But I think like in general, having like qualifiers, I remember when like the first set was just like announced or start to release here in Germany or in Europe. I think the most common question was like, yeah, when will the first regional already start to happen? And I think because like Altered is a new game, also don't have like a super billion company behind it to just like basically run it. It's like super hard because there are like other card games that basically when they started to release, like they could already just like set after like 2 days, yeah, we can possibly do a regional next month. It doesn't matter how much actually going to the cells. So actually going to have like those road qualifiers is like super cool. And I'm super excited for that one. But like, yeah. I wish for some other things during the qualifiers, but maybe this is like a whole different topic I could talk about in a YouTube video. Because there are like some things that I would like love that it would be like different, but yeah, at the end it's just like my opinion, and I'm not running the company, so yeah. I'm just like you to say. So at the end, I'm not running any company, so I don't have like any clue. But what I have actually clue is like that round 5 almost finished, and as you can see, I'm just like hopping to the last tables. With the undefeated players, actually, if we're going to have one more game actually happen, then we have like 9 players that going to be undefeated, or like 4-0. And so it could be around 4 to 5 players actually that have a chance to qualifying for the final series. Because if you're being able to win all 5 games through the tournament, then you're being qualified for the final series. Yes. And
yeah,
with that,
this is one of the ways that that we've looked with like the AQZ Championship Series in general to make sure that there's something in it for like the most competitive players who want to win like many rounds in a single evening tournament or whatever, and really feel rewarded for it. Is that qualification that we do. It's not quite like AWOL, where a player that goes X and 1, for example, or in previous seasons X and 2 would qualify for a final event. The final event here is much smaller resultingly, but the caliber of play is super high in general, as all of the players have to go undefeated in order to get there. And then otherwise, what that lets us do otherwise is have a really fun 5-round event, which is so perfect for players who just don't have, 3 to 4 hours to kill on the night, just, 2.5. It's a lot more manageable for a lot of those people, which is great, given that it is a weeknight for people, especially in Europe, at least. I know, Astra, it's a little bit different for you, of course, but in Europe means that most people here have work and then typically other like dinner or family obligations in addition to their Altered hobby. So of course that's really efficient, and that helps us provide a really fun event for as many people as possible, and then still give something to everyone, so that there's something in it for casual players and something in it for like the top competitive players. And we see those top competitive players coming back again and again, which is really exciting.
It's working out. And also, if someone actually started to write me with like, hey, those 5 rounds are actually like super fitting in my weekly plan, it's like most of the time actually like all those players that actually join in and want to compete in the highest level or like in the highest places at the end, right? And saying like, hey, it's like a super easy way to just like going into the tournament, knowing there would be like other strong players, and then instead of like a 3 hours plus evening, it's just like a 2 to 2.5 hours evening to just like also getting like a little bit of training, right? And also like the play. So as Keelan mentioned, like the most important thing that always we have in mind was like we want to make sure that it's like feels like a local game store night environment, and I think it's like super doing well. And that's also like one of the reasons why the AQC Blitz as well will start to going into the 5 rounds, so that it's still like a highly competitive tournament, but also it's actually a tournament that can run weekly because the players actually have time to play and participate each week. And it's super interesting. And talking about super interesting stuff, Göring is actually started cooking and Afanas on the game that I'm streaming right now.
Which table is this?
I think it's the only one that has any progression remaining.
It's game in the box. Table 37. 37.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, somehow
Wow,
the
yeah.
Golrang has managed to navigate their way to what looks like a commanding position, at least on board at the moment. But there is still a potential for Afanis to manage to stall one expedition here, I would say. Something like Katagir Mage Dancer would be able to quickly skyrocket in stats and potentially outcontest these Ordis recruits. Or otherwise, potentially just removal effects might be able to take it down as well. But
Exactly.
they definitely have their work cut out for them, given that they've already spent 2 of those Katagir Mage Dancers this game already, meaning that it's likely that the last one is either in mana or in those remaining 10 cards in the deck.
Yeah,
Yes.
not to mention, you've also got things that you can worry about, like, for example, Blizzard, because... Oh, wait, no, never mind. They play a unique, which...
Oh, there is the Blizzard!
Oh, no way.
No,
This
wait,
is
what?
like...
That's stunning.
Oh, this is an exhausted card! It's
And,
an
and the-
exhausted card in reserve, so it costs 4.
No, in this
No,
case, it
it's
was
not rare.
that the Katagir Alchemist unique makes the next card you play this afternoon cost 1 less, and has
Oh
the
my
when I leave
gosh.
the expedition zone, you may return a spell to your hand effect.
This is
That's
crazy.
really sweet. I think in general, we'd often consider this Katagir Alchemist just a little bit weaker even than some of these other uniques that do just return a spell when you play it, or otherwise when it leaves the expedition zone. But this is one of the really nice, tricky plays that does get enabled by it. Being able to sort of make it look like a Blizzard cannot come down, the player continues to commit to that side, and then you just say, it's all gone, it's all gone. It's so good.
Yep. Oh, no! That's a
Woo!
conscription, though, and with 2 cards in Golrang's reserve, it looks like that Blizzard was not able to be stalled long
Yeah.
enough, because those recruits getting boosts means that the Golrang is going to be able to double advance and take it.
That
Yeah,
is
notably as
crazy.
well, I definitely misread Conscription the first time I saw it because I thought it cared about the number of cards in your opponent's reserve. No,
Yes.
it cares about either. You get to
Yeah.
choose. So in this case, it is barely enough to take it down on that hero side, despite that really sweet Blizzard play. Always cool to see Golrang take it down against maybe like one of the dominant heroes, the way we keep thinking of Afanis as.
Yep. Now, one
And
thing that you
other
gotta
than-
keep in mind is... Yeah. Imagine if he had used Blizzard on the companion side, it actually would not have been possible for Golrang to double advance and win this day, because Conscription can only put the recruits in one. It's not like Rare Blizzard, or sorry, not Blizzard. It's not like Rare Open the Gates where you get to choose where those recruits go individually.
Fair enough, and with that, we have found our way into the final round. Just as a quick reminder, this is the AQZ Championship Series, Season 2, Week 2. I'm the Killon guy, joined here on the commentator's desk by Astronebula2. Super awesome to have you here, and otherwise, of course, this is, as usual, paandyandy's stream. He's joining us here in the kitchen. And with that, do you have a final table that you'd like to look at with one of these, or 2 of these undefeated players, or should I pick one?
You're asking me or Pandy?
Either of you.
Man, I mean, if I am allowed to watch a final table, actually I want to take a look into Neuro against Frost Hero for Doddy or Doddy. It's
Yeah.
table 1. It's table 1.
Yeah, got it.
Sounds excellent to me.
So-
Neuro, well known
Okay.
for having some of the most competitive play, not only on BGA, where they've definitely had an impressive tournament record thus far, but
Yeah.
also in person. They were the champion of that first massive event in France, in Angers, back towards the beginning of set 1 even.
Yes.
They were Waru abusing, of course, but as was everyone back
Well
then.
done.
But yeah, they're definitely a player with a lot of expertise to their name. But it looks like their opponent has been doing it pretty darn well this tournament thus far as well. Duty from Team 404.
And as we can
Okay,
see,
I've loaded into it.
you loaded into it, and it will be Basira against Afanas, an amazing game to watch. And the reason why I choose it, because we will see a German player actually being almost undefeated, and it's always nice to see for me. And the Team 404 is also a team that is being in Bielefeld, and here in Germany we have a joke that Bielefeld is a non-existing city. Just a fun fact for you guys. But now I don't want to interrupt your cast, so enjoy the time with both of them.
One of
Alrighty
the
then.
coolest day 1 sequences that I've seen in a while, that being the common physical training being played on a rare Tiny Gen to take a day 1 progression plus ramp, even against an opposing Baba Yaga.
Yeah, very interesting. It makes a lot of sense when the Afanas was going first, because rare Baba Yaga is something you see a lot in day one matchups versus Afanas. Now, one thing that I'm interested to see here is the difference between these two heroes, which fall under the same archetype of boosting. While Afanas needs a spell to boost, Basira can technically gain a free boost whenever any one of their characters gains a boost, and that includes abilities on characters that gain boosts by themselves. Now, here's a great card that combos with physical training really well, and here's where that tiny gen ramp comes in, is that rare physical training coming onto that red makes it so that at dusk it will have the 3 or more boosts to draw a card.
This is, however, the most brutal line against that, which is just playing out a Tooth Fairy and saying, yeah, sure, you can get those early progressions. It's going to cost you all of your cards. Basira, yeah, they can play from reasonably low cards, but like any deck, you need enough cards in order to be able to play the game. Otherwise, that early mana advantage that was generated with that tiny gen, they're going to lose that when they eventually don't get to mana a card at the start of the day.
Yeah, that physical training would have been amazing in order to get that at dusk draw card on the red. Not to mention it being seasoned means that it would be a 3 cost, possibly 6/6/6 from reserve if Basira had used, which most likely they would have used the boost on the red. But that Tooth Fairy definitely takes that line out. And not
Paandy,
to mention,
scene switch, please.
Yeah. And
you gotta show the
Baba
game. This is a
Yaga.
good one.
Yeah. Oh wait, right. How are we supposed to commentate if they can't even see?
There you go. Well, Paandy is apparently just hanging out. He's left us with his chair and nothing else, so unfortunately, we are podcasting this game for you guys. The Basira has managed to find their way towards 2 progressions this game, evened up just by 1 by the Afanas, so currently Basira is just a little bit ahead on the Tumult. Good number of cards in hand, though, for Duty, our Afanas player. They have 4 in hand. Basira just at 1 card in hand, 2 cards in reserve, that being a rare red and a Bravos Excavator. Paandy, you are back. Scene switch, please.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you.
I'm so sorry.
Yay.
I'm so sorry, guys.
Okay. Don't worry about it. I mean, I was going to suggest you could take one player and I could take the other player, and then we just commentate each player.
Fair enough. Well, luckily we don't have to do that. In this case, red getting played out again by the Basira, and magical training. Excellent card here from the Afanas. It's just more card advantage, but ooh, that is a nice card advantage piece, at least for Basira. The sort of thing that they really need at this point is that physical training rare this time. Interesting seeing that they're playing the split between rarities.
Yeah, very interesting always to see when people play splits and rarities, because when it comes down to the individual differences, it already depends on which one you draw, because you could draw the common, you could draw the rare. So having that discrepancy means that you're not as consistent with knowing exactly when you're going to draw which one. However, that red and rare physical training combined, as you said, definitely puts Basira in a playable position, because now with 4 cards in their hand from the draw, possibly 3 after monoing, they'll have 2 cards in reserve and 3 from hand, and are now back up to a manageable state when it comes to the amount of cards that they can play.
I think that was a really scary spot for the Basira, where they did come out of it in a really good way. They were potentially vulnerable to an off-you-go, pretty much taking out their entire game plan, and I think it was a really critical turn for the Afanas to have had that, if they did, and they, unfortunately for them, did not, meaning that Basira has done a great job in terms of coming back as far as card advantage is concerned. They're still ahead in terms of mana, and they've crawled their way back to the point, at least where I'm not worried about them immediately running out of gas, so really important day for them, I would say.
Not to mention, that physical training from reserve not only puts them with 3 boosts on the board, but it also draws a card from reserve, something that the rare upgrades. Is even though it costs 1 more from hand, it makes it so that the reserve effect is now empowered for the exact same cost of 3.
And notably as well, it's worth mentioning that this Afanas is running common Mage Dancer, which is not the most commonly seen thing at this point, I would say. Most players defaulting towards that rare version, especially now that Helping Hand is not there anymore as an additional card advantage engine in some sort of way. Oftentimes players are reliant on that rare version, but I've always been a fan of Common Mage Dancer. The card's just great at any rarity, truthfully, which is why I'm not super surprised to see it. It's just a little bit of an interesting, I guess, what would I call that? Like identity choice for how you want to build your Afanas deck. Baba Yaga now.
Sorry, could you repeat
Yeah, no
that?
worries. I was just gonna say it's like a cool identity choice for how they want to construct their Afanis deck. It does save them some rare slots for other things, including things like Baba Yaga. Sometimes a lot of players have not found space for the rare version anymore.
Yeah, not to mention with the Helping Hand being removed, it makes sense that they would go for the rare Baba Yaga, because it means that Helping Hand, whereas it helps your cards lose fleeting, Baba Yaga gives you that guaranteed card draw from hand. Not to mention plenty of beefy stats, given that it's a 3-cost 3/2/2 instead of a 2/1/2, which is why I commonly say that the common Baba Yaga is rarer than the rare Baba Yaga.
I would agree on that. I do not enjoy playing common Baba Yaga myself the times that I have done so. Getting outstatted by like a brass bug always feels terrible if you run into like a Sierra while playing Afanis with that common Baba Yaga. Yeah, just not my favorite thing in the world. Of course, 3/2/2 narrowly goes over that brass bug instead of just losing to it. But in this case, no brass bugs to be seen here unless we had like a Foundry Armorer coming out of some sort.
Yeah,
but at the moment, at least, Basira doing a pretty good job of contesting on both sides, but an Off You Go is finally found by our Afanis player, and that will let them at least prevent one of the expeditions from Basira. It's not quite enough, though, to shore up that companion side.
Yep. With one stat fewer in that companion side, given that the Basira actually is in mountain, not just plant, the Basira can sneak in an advancement and retains that one expedition lead that they so desperately need against an Afanis. I did not mean to rhyme there. Anyway, it looks like the biomes are going to be looking pretty good for the Basira, because the Afanis does not... Oh, he does seem to be keeping the Baba Yaga in reserve, I guess so that he can get that overstat and plant on the left side, or perhaps, as I mentioned earlier, he could be running low on characters. We'll have to see and find out.
Yeah, sometimes the characters are really the critical dynamic here, and for just 2 mana, having that 3/2/2, exactly as you mentioned, it's overstated, it's very good in general, and actually, interestingly enough, it plays very well against a lot of the things that the Bravos heroes are good at. A lot of characters do have stat lines that this narrowly outstats, either by 1 stat on that forest expedition, or when it's something like a Haven Sarengar, for example, they have the weaker mountain or water stat line, and that does outstat on those as well.
Yep, Baba Yaga seems like a good card to play into Basira, and he does end up playing that immediately. No choice at all right there. He plays it on that hero side, and the Basira combats that with his own Chiron, however you want to say it. I literally just swap between the two. It's a head coin flip whether or not I call it Chiron or Chiron. But anyway, Afanis is going to be ending up playing that rare magical training from reserve to give the Baba Yaga a boost. Oh, here we come out with a unique from Basira's. It's an Ozma, 3-cost 2-cost 0/3/1. So it is understated in a lot, but at dusk, if it has 2 or more boosts, it draws a card, and when it goes to reserve from the expedition zone, it draws a card. So double card draw for 3 is going to be very interesting, and we'll see how they can boost it.
Neuro loves card advantage uniques, and this is definitely exactly that. Not only is it guaranteed card draw, at least when this gets met by a removal spell, for example, but also with that additional card draw that synergizes so well with the Basira hero ability, easily puts 2 boosts here onto that Ozma and does threaten to draw an additional card at dusk, meaning that, yeah, suddenly there is no worry whatsoever, I would say, about the Basira running out of gas. And I think, interestingly enough, we're likely... a timely removal spell will take it out and prevent double card draw there.
No way!
Oh,
it doesn't
yeah,
go to
that's
reserve,
insane.
It gets discarded.
Beautiful.
That is amazing. Wow, and a double advance comes in for the Afanis, totally stopping Basira's plan. Wow. That is very unexpected. This rare license withdrawal was definitely needed here for the Afanis. He finally ekes out a lead, and with Basira now being first, it looks like Basira is the one who's going to have to be worried about trying to block the Afanis.
Yeah, license withdrawal, really the perfect card to be swapping that rarity over, maybe from that category in Mage Dancer too, considering exactly this matchup. It deals with these characters so well, and notably, the character has to be boosted in order to get discarded that way. Oh, such a great play in general, both in terms of like the effect that it has in the specific game state, but just how it feels when you take down a unique like that with just a direct discard. There's no ability for Helping Hand to be played on a fleeting character there and keep it around perpetually. There's none of that. It's just gone forever. And suddenly, Basira has their work cut out for them here. Katagiri Mage Dancer coming down to that hero side. I have a feeling that if there's a removal spell here, this could be completely over.
Could be very different. Yeah, this is very dangerous territory for Basira. Any removal spell on that.
Wow.
Ooh,
That's the one.
Sleep is probably going to be taking it. Yep. There we go, just another one of those spells. Beauty Sleep, off you go, License Withdrawal, all of these amazing spells that are so efficient on Afanas. The fact that they're a 1-drop, they're on par with stats, because for 1 mana, you're getting 1 boost, but then you're also getting, it's almost like the ability becomes free from hand anyway.
Absolutely stunning sequences there from Duty, back-to-back days of just really perfect numbers, both in terms of mana and what cards they had access to. The card advantage engine that Neuro was trying to get together, not quite enough here. And yeah, double removal spell, taking it down. Wow, impressive. Well done to 404's Duty, our first undefeated finisher.
Yeah, just like
very
try to
impressive that he
another
takes
one.
down Neuro.
Just like to tell you. So if we can just like join another final match then directly afterwards, if you want to, so we can make sure we see as much as possible.
Table 3. Let's do table 3 then.
All right.
Yeah, it's only at 29%, so that it's looking juicy.
And this one, table 3, jumping in directly, it's Afanas against his little sister Nevenka. I'm going to continue to call it that until someone gets angry at me. We did have an interesting card get played out by Nevenka this game, at least. It's currently hanging out in their discard. Actually, 2 of them, both from the new set and at Rare, Scribbling Starfish and Daedalus. I think Daedalus specifically, really exciting as far as potential synergies with Nevenka's hero ability and potential uniques that synergize with both of those as well.
Yep. I'm honestly looking at a very interesting matchup here, because when you think about it, honestly, one thing of note is that we've been seeing so much Afanas. Like, what are the chances that we keep clicking on all of these Afanas games? Is it really that there's this much Afanas, or is it that we've just been getting lucky/unlucky with clicking on these games?
In this case, it's that we did already see Ben Hall, actually. So that's one of the reasons why. In this case, the specific Spindle Harvester that's in play, it's the same one, exactly.
Yeah, the exact same one, yeah.
I always love seeing the Sabotage come out from Afanas when it's a Tooth Fairy. It looks so strong for just 2 mana there. But luckily, at least for Nevenka, is that they have a unique of their own to potentially even things up a little bit here. They're going to contest pretty well on that companion side, thanks to that unique, while picking up some cards. It's a good one.
Yeah, did you see that interaction just there? When you roll one or more dice, you may return a card from your reserve to your hand, which means that when that hand ability is played out and it rolls a die, you can either draw a card or draw a card, except the difference is that if you do roll a 1 to 3, your opponent sees the card that goes to your hand. Very interesting. I do like that synergy with itself.
It's a good unique, I gotta say. In general, picking up cards from your reserve is just a strong thing to be doing with many heroes, but in this specific case, being self-enabling is really nice, and exactly as you say, that fail case of 1 to 3 resupply is not really much of a fail case. The only loss there is just that little bit of information that their opponent gleans. So I believe that was a Sandman that was picked back up. So Sandman. Yeah, so Afanas is now at least aware of that they will have to be playing around that card most likely.
Oh, the Evanescence is going to be getting rid of that unique, so its passive effect is, passive/active effect is not going to be active since it's not in the Expedition Zone anymore. Okay, not to mention that Evanescence, because it's only 2 cost from hand, one of his cards is going to be able to gain a boost, and so he's going to be targeting that Tooth Fairy, and that Evanescence, if he plays other spells, like for example the Magical Training from Reserve, is going to start slowly building up those counters.
That it will. I'm really interested, though, overall, like what the next sequence is going to be this day. There's a couple different combinations for Afanas that could be really strong, whether that is just a 1-cost spell in addition to this Katagiri Mage Dancer to outstat anything that potentially enters play either on the hero side or companion side, or otherwise just potentially a single removal spell. Or then I think the absolute worst case for Nevenka would be if they do absolutely nothing, and then Magical Training just goes over the top no matter what.
Yep.
all sort of really rough cases for Nevenka, and they're sort of just guessing which one they're going to have to potentially play around the most here,
Yeah.
which is
One
a
thing
rough
I've-
spot to
yeah.
be in.
Yeah, one thing Nevenka players have to think about is the timing of when you want to use your ability. If you do you want to use your ability and see what you roll and then play off of that, or do you want to save your ability for later so that you can keep your opponent guessing based on where that boost goes? Unfortunately, if you do save it for later, then you also run the risk of sending one of your cards to reserve because you don't know what that dice output is going to be at any given time.
Definitely
Wait, I just thought of something. That unique, that category in Mage Dancer, when you roll one or more dice, you may return a card from your reserve to your hand. Is it possible for you to order it so that if you do roll a 1 on that Nevenka and your card gets sent to reserve, does that unique send it back to your hand?
Oh
feel like it
yeah,
does.
I think that works. Yeah, I think that works, which is pretty sweet overall. These
We're just
dice rolling
discovering more and
effects.
more ways, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. I think it's further ways of just getting rid of the fail cases for the hero ability, where that hero ability in general becomes particularly strong. I mean, sometimes we see it with just martingales, other times we see it in actually, yeah, interestingly enough, it's a funny fail case right now where the okay, they are able to play out a Daedalus. Oh, they're going to struggle though. No, even then, it's hard. They did just have a fail case where they did roll a 6, which awkwardly enough is a fail case when they're looking to outstat. So meaning that they do not find a progression themselves onto that companion side, but they do at least retain a character for the next day, which can be good, but especially with Ouroboros Inkcaster, you often want that card to be leaving play and heading to reserve instead, as it does pick up another card in that case. So a little bit rough here, I would say, for Nevenka, really wanting to hit any other die roll, really. But yeah, sometimes it happens. That's you live by the die roll, die by it.
Yep, yeah. That Inkcaster going to reserve would have been ideal so that they could possibly send the Unique or Daedalus back to hand. But one thing to note is that now that this thing is anchored, he's got a pretty good target that he can roll the dice on. And as I was expecting, he's going to be keeping that Unique plus the Daedalus, which means that if he plays that Unique out, we could be looking at a Daedalus loop, which was mentioned in the chat by, let me check, Runefolk, because what they can do is essentially, once that Unique is out on the field, if they roll the dice with Nevenka, then, or any other card, Daedalus would go back to hand, and then by using Scout 1, Daedalus can consistently keep rolling dice, go to reserve, get back to hand, and then just keep cycling that over and over again. So they could essentially be looking at a a good loop that they could be. Ooh. Okay. We're looking at a sabotage of the magical training over the category in Mage Dancer. Very interesting decision. I would say I prefer to sabotage Afanis' characters, but I will say it makes sense that you would get rid of the magical training because that's just more installed.
Yeah, interesting actually, because like I guess what that telegraphs is that the Nevenka player is fine with this exact line from the Afanis, so playing out that Mage Dancer immediately and potentially getting a lot of value out of it. If I had to guess, it's going to be because of something like a Daedalus loop or something where they're convinced that they will likely be able to outstat this day. But yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised. I think that this Katagirian Mage Dancer is likely going to be able to outstat anyway on that hero side. Maybe they're totally fine with that, but even then, Mage Dancer is just such a rough threat here because this is the rare version, meaning it does threaten to draw cards at dusk and further cement the card advantage that Ben Hall has already developed this game.
Yeah. That's one thing that you gotta worry about when it comes to Afanis, is that when you do try to sabotage or run him out of resources, he always has something in his back pocket, whether it's magical training, Katagirian Mage Dancer, maybe even a red artifact. You never know.
I also have to feel like if that had been the common version of magical training, there's virtually no chance it would have gotten sabotaged there. That rare version is potentially threatening still, though, at 2 mana for that to be just played out as one of the main things that Afanis is looking to do over their day. But really, in a day where you have access to Katagirian Mage Dancer for 1 from reserve, I don't think it's a big priority, but that explains why Requiem does take down that fleeting Katagirian Mage Dancer, and that's definitely the reason why they wanted to go after the magical training instead. I think just from the Nevenka's perspective, they were really hoping that there would not be a backup character, and especially not a Katagirian Mage Dancer.
Yeah, that's unfortunately is very likely to get them over the stats on Nevenka's side, and we might be looking at another trade. Good thing, one thing to note is that the Requiem is, the Newset is playing it in the rare version, where it can also discard an asleep character, and it has cooldown, which means it can be used again instead of just being discarded itself. We'll have to see what they decide to send back to hand from the Inkcaster. It may very well be the Requiem, or it could be the Tanuki, so that they have more sabotage.
Yeah, that is a good point. I'm still just thinking about like what Afanis's lines could be this day. And I think it looks like they are just going to try to propel their stats up onto the companion side. I think they're going to need... Actually, never mind. They could just replay again the Sap Infusion, I believe, and that should be enough. A single progression for them is fine because they're currently already ahead on the Tumult. We're not in those days anymore where just riding it out while being even with your opponent is enough for Afanis, as Small Step Giant Leap no longer immediately wins the game for you. However, the Afanis has found themselves in a position where they are one expedition ahead, so just riding it out and trading 1 for 1 will be enough for them if they're able to do so.
Correct. Not to mention that category and Mage Dance are going to reserve. Oh, we've got an Off You Go coming out from the hand. That could be enough to get rid of the Inkcaster. There we go. Most likely he's doing that so that he can get the Sap Infusion counter. It could be that he's most likely just going to discard the Off You Go at night since the reserve will overflow. And of course, the Mage Dancer going in reserve is amazing because not only does it at dusk draw cards, but it being 1 cost from reserve means that Afanis is still going to have plenty of ways to after you.
You know, I'm starting to wonder when into a Lyra matchup specifically at this point, seeing a Katagarin Mage Dancer with so many boosts, I'm like wondering to myself, is there a world where the Newset is running Sap Duende, for example, potentially stealing away all of those boosts and putting them on, say, for example, their own character in reserve? That could be something particularly strong. But honestly, I think the thing that's really difficult about that card is that the point in the game where they can use that against something like this Katagarin Mage Dancer, they've likely had to spend virtually all of their mana already, or even pass, before all of those boosts and that Katagarin Mage Dancer have fully come out, just given how many cheap cards and both characters and spells that Afanis often has access to be able to say off you or after you repeatedly. And this is a great example of exactly that. Not only preventing removal here, but just 1 mana after you.
Yep. Oh, we've got our own 1 mana after you coming out from the Newset. Finally, it's a magical training that you were hoping for from any of our Lyra players. And it looks like it's finally going to give Newset a chance to at least play to the other side. Or, oh no. And apparently Afanis can just use Rime Frost again. Never mind.
Well, notably, it can still get picked up again from reserve thanks to uniques. So I would say it's not entirely over for the chances of this magical training of getting played again and again. Same goes for the Requiem, actually. That could end up getting picked up as well. But yeah, Martingale, nice one to start things off, meaning that the die rolls should just be a little bit better this day. And yeah, the unique Katagarin Mage Dancer that we saw before comes out now, picks up a card, and we're going to see which... it is the Requiem that they do choose to pick up from their own reserve, so good removal spell that can likely take down this Mage Dancer here.
Remember, he also still has the option of putting that magical training back. He's just trying to get that Requiem back into his hand as fast as possible to take out the chances of it being sabotaged.
Yeah, and notably as well, there's no helping hand to remove the fleeting from the Mage Dancer, so Requiem is a perfect removal spell into it at this point. It's just not very cost efficient. Ouroboros Inkcaster helps a little bit as far as that cost efficiency is concerned, as, you know, there is just the additional mana they have access to. But all things considered, I think that Afanis, if they have another character, is still likely to be able to find a progression this day, whether that's just on either side, really. They can sort of pick one if they have another character, and I think there's pretty good chances that they'll be able to ride that out, and it's another Mage Dancer.
Wow, this cycling of having 1 fleeting, 1 non-fleeting is going to be really painful for this Newset, because it doesn't matter if they get rid of that Katagarin Mage Dancer on the left, because the one on the right is still going to end up getting boosted and possibly go over that Martingale. We've got another magical training coming out from the hand of Newset. It could be one that they've drawn from the effect of their unique. And with Evanescence coming out, it looks like that unique is going to be sent to reserve and exhausted, so Newset won't be able to use it once again.
Yeah, that's really good timing for that removal spell to come down as well, preventing the pickup of one of these magical trainings here. Really big deal, I would say. Oh, it's sort of perfect timing there. And yeah, we still know that there is that one card, that Requiem, that will remove this character from that hero side. But if a character doesn't get played out additionally to that, like for example, this Ouroboros Incaster could get played out onto the hero side, but as it stands then, that's still going to be at least one progression for Afanas.
Yeah. One thing that I'm looking is that if Afanas doesn't have, I mean, it's unlikely, but if Afanas doesn't have another one-drop in their hand, then we could be looking at a Requiem still targeting that hero side category Mage Dancer, and then on the companion side, we could have the Incaster come out and a Nevenka boosting the Incaster or Martingale, and that could just put them over the Mage Dancer if Afanas doesn't have any. But it all depends on what Afanas has in hand, because if Afanas does have a spell, then that category Mage Dancer could gain 2 boosts and definitely go over any Incaster or anything.
No, yeah, definitely. And, you know, I have a feeling... I don't think there's a very high chance of there being a one-cost spell from Afanas here. I mean, high chance in comparison to other decks, sure. But there have been a good number played out this game already. Rhymefrost was one of those, multiple magical trainings, and we know that the Sap Infusion that Afanas is choosing to play here is at common, meaning that it's not at one cost, so I think that the gamble is probably worth it there. Of course, Nevenka, a hero that's very used to the gamble, so we'll see.
Yep.
But regardless...
And of course, he can always just choose to play the Incaster or another card on the hero side now that it has been freed up from the clutches of that Mage Dancer.
Yeah, definitely. I think the main worry I have here is the fact that they're virtually no matter what going to be losing yet another progression. It is a Beauty Sleep, does sleep a Martingale here. Interesting. I think that one's played just to get this Dusk draw off of the Katagarin Mage Dancer, but I'm almost surprised to see it here.
I will say the Beauty Sleep on the Martingale almost also benefits the Nevenka, because after this trade, that Martingale is going to ensure that Nevenka will not be sending any of their own cards to reserve, so that puts a bit of stress off of Nevenka's plate. And with that 5, they also have the option of anchoring the Incaster, which is one of the better options for them. And so, of course, the sleep on the Martingale doesn't affect that as much, but it is still powerful that they have an Incaster on the board with 2 stats and the Martingale on the companion side with 1 stat.
Yeah, I guess one of the big questions that we have here is whether or not Nevenka still has in hand that Sandman that we saw them pick up earlier. Oftentimes, one of the strongest things that you can do when you do have like one of these Katagarin Mage Dancers that picks up cards from the reserve is you show your opponent something, you pick it back up, and then you put it into your mana the next time you do so, and your opponent has to play around it regardless. But if they do have it here, it could be one of these ways that they could potentially come back in this game and potentially even steal a double advance to win themselves.
Yep, it all depends on what's in either player's hand. Keep in mind Nevenka is first, which means that if they don't have as many ways of after-newing, then it could be that they may not even get a chance to use that Sandman, since Afanas still has plenty of after-you of his own. But we'll have to see. One thing that I am interested to see is whether Afanas targets this Requiem, because it could be that perhaps Afanas has, like, I won't say that he's forgotten about the Sandman, but it could be that in thinking about this Requiem that he's seeing right in front of him, he might just target it with another Tooth Fairy or perhaps a Rhymefrost. There's the Tooth Fairy on the Requiem, exactly how as I was saying. That does mean that Afanas has 8 mana left. Oh, we've got a Snowball Commando coming out from Nevenka. That does exhaust the Katagarin Mage Dancer. And without a Rocket Puffin or Vikie, it looks like Afanas is going to have to do without it.
It sounds like, Astro, you're a big believer in Rocket Puffin and Vikie out of Afanas. If I ever see that,
like
I will attribute it to you. However, until then, not super surprised to see the configurations as we've seen them. But, you know, Tooth Fairy, it's always good. It's just, in this specific instance, just a little bit outperformed by the Snowball Commando for the 2 mana, especially given that there's no things in Nevenka's reserve that can be exhausted themselves, even if there was the poor die roll. But as it stands, 2 mana on excellent expeditions then for Nevenka, the Snowball Commando just significantly outstatting this Tooth Fairy. So, wow,
Don't forget,
superior 2 mana card here.
Yeah, Afanas is stuck on Mountain, which means that with no way to unexhaust that category in Mage Dancer, the Snowball Commando essentially becomes a much better sabotage than the Tooth Fairy. It's looking like Nevenka's going to be in a really good spot because Afanas, with that Tooth Fairy and category in Mage Dancer, perhaps he didn't even keep another character in his hand. I will say he probably did, because it's always better to err on the safe side, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up just having to pass here, or at least not passing, but if he ends up having to just rely on this single Tooth Fairy, which we of course know can be slept by a possible Sandman.
Yeah, we'll see. I think it's really going to come down to whether or not that Sandman did in fact get mana'd, or whether it did just sit there in hand. Definitely, it's one of the cards that you have to play around at this stage of the game if you're the Afanas. But yeah, another Beauty Sleep now coming down for Afanas, and
Whoa!
oh no,
Okay.
and we
No
did have a
way,
timeout.
what? 3 seconds?
The end of the round at
unfair.
-3 seconds. Benhall did run out of time, and I guess that's, what we've always been saying. You gotta play faster if you want to
Yeah,
guarantee
you gotta
not
play
lose to
faster.
running out of time in the round.
It's funny
Very
because
interesting.
tournament still seems the game still seems to be on play on Boardgamesarena.
I just want to know what was in his hand. Was it another character?
I wish I could tell you, but the game is still in progress, as BGA says is saying. So
We'll have
I
to
cannot.
see him.
Yes, I cannot tell you now. It's still. That is real. Okay.
I think there might be some
Elon guy, I think
server
that's enough.
problems. Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily in the last round, I would love to have a chess clock for offline tournaments. Yeah, dude. I mean, this is like a topic I could talk for hours because I'm like honest. So like the new tournament guidelines got to be uploaded, like a 33 paper sheet, pages sheet, and there was also like mentioning about stalling or slow play. But I think you actually, like, for a game like Altered, I think at some point you need to somehow also ruling about timing, because it's like you have decks that going. So my personal opinion, you have decks, if you have more time with them to figuring everything out, it's automatically like a higher success for the turn. And this is like super sad because as I can say, like on every stream, I can tell you like almost like 2 billions of tumults where I've heard people played for 40 to 50 minutes, and then there was one player with like 8 minutes timer, and the other player took like the whole other time. And this is like super frustrating. But I think right now with the guidelines, and also then with more judges for the tumults maybe, and also for the qualifiers, it's going to be a little bit more strict. But what is like slow play? What is like stalling actually, right? Because sometimes you need to think a little bit more, and sometimes you want to play slower to be sure. So a chess clock would be super awesome. And I think it would be also better for tournaments. But it's my opinion. It's my opinion. What else I want to say is like the servers, I have some issues. I'm happy that it's like only on the last round happened, right? Yeah, the tournament maximum time reached for every game, but they're still in progress. What are we doing now, guys?
Yeah, it's just a server issue. I think the one thing that you're going to have to figure out, paandyandy, is who the undefeated players were for potential championship qualification, or potentially if it did like incorrectly time out players, maybe you'll have to credit that to multiple people. I don't know.
Yes.
That's why I'm happy that you're the host and organizer and not me. It's above my pay grade. I'm just here to commentate matches while they're still in play. But yeah, unfortunately, yeah, it's a little sad to see the service sort of coming to an abrupt end there. But that was a really
At
tight
least it
game
wasn't in the
overall.
middle of the tournament.
Hmm.
Okay, so what do we have next though? Because I believe there's, what's it called, the boss battle? Is that after the tournament?
Yeah, exactly. That is typically after the tournament. It's just, I guess it depends on whether or not something like that can be even started with the server being questionable. Let's say, Paandy,
Yes.
up to you on that.
I mean, it's like super sad, but I also have like quite some issues. Yeah, has bad charger cut off for some reason. Yeah, should point out in my video. I mean, it's like for me, Cole, I will just like answering first. So I have also like super duper issues with Boardgamesarena actually. It's like super hard. So I would say maybe we should not do the boss battle for today, because I don't want to spend like that you guys need to wait like hours before we can join something in, because it's like
Yeah,
super
that's
laggy.
okay.
It's super laggy. So hey, that's like a super weird cut off from the tournament.
It definitely is. I mean, if nothing else, I would like to read out our guaranteed undefeated players,
Yes.
at least so people know who did manage to score their qualifications and win the event today. We had at least 3 of them. I think the 4th one would be either Ben Hull or Sawaki, who we were just seeing. Of course, Paandy will have to give an update on that, I guess. But otherwise, the 3 that we did have were HAT's Musi Wallace, 404's Duty, who we did see in that match against Neuro, and then Belteshazzar 91, the Kojo King over there, is back and bringing it, apparently. So congrats to you 3.
Okay, so yeah, congrats on that, and for everyone that's watching the stream and is also being was like 4-0 before Auto's bug appears, just reach out to me. I will check out if like the results were like different, and if the results were not different, then I would just like say every player that reached 4-0 will get an invite for the tournament finals. It's like okay,
Yeah.
because you can't do anything against it. It's super story. I would love to actually manual put out everything and the results, but besides actually chatting, what is also not working through the server issues, and creating a tournament, it's very limited what we as tournament organizers can basically do. We can talk about the issues. It's also a thing, but yeah, I would say let's see how it will be handled out. And yeah, I think if you want, we can still just like chat a little bit, a couple of minutes instead of the boss battle, and because yeah, Cole actually, oh yeah, Bird is back. So Bird was like, how do you feel about the MMA, like 80% of the time in French? Even if I understand that Lil wrote qualifier in France, at the same time I had planned to be there, but still waiting for VOD showing me integrated. And I hope to see more English streams, or maybe they can make them dual language. So for all those who being here and didn't know that, there was like another AMA. The AMA was specially for Lille, but actually it was like not that mentioned in the YouTube video. The video for the stream was named questions about, I would say, qualifiers and stuff like that. If I'm correct? I'm correct? Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
hold on, I need
but
to
yeah, exactly.
order a TCG. Yeah, it was like that. So it's like a little bit pro of like AMA news. Was like AMA new season, or what was it? Where can I find it? Okay, so it was like really weird named. Yeah, stream and play road qualifiers. And that was, I think it's like a little bit sad that it's like this title is come to, and I mean they still answer it, the questions in English, but only the questions that actually came up as English. So what do you think about it?
If that question's for me, I hate it. I think the biggest problem that I have with it is that it's been clear that Altered's very successful in France, and they're trying to, you know, create World Championships events and get people from all around the world to be participating in them. And frankly, other countries need the support. If they're giving out official communications related to their World Champions thing and making it even harder to access for people who are not from France, it's a losing strategy. Don't have much else to say.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you need to be talking completely seriously when it comes to a business decision to Altered they're really trying to expand worldwide. They have that, they made marketplace available to as many countries as they could, and they're trying their best to get print on demand everywhere as well. Not to mention that there's people worldwide, there's people in Australia, there's people in Europe, there's people in the Americas, so they need to be able to have a system that can reach all the corners of the globe. And if they need to do that, if they want to do that successfully, then you're right, they're definitely going to need to at least do most of their stuff in English, because English is of course the most widely available and most accessible language. Hey, I mean, you can't say that people who only speak English, it's not like they're not trying to learn other languages. Maybe they just weren't exposed to other languages or haven't had the ability to learn other languages. I, of course, multilingual, so I feel you.
And I also, what I want to add like that is like for me personally, I mean, it would be like a difference if you would like have a specific channel or like a specific stream that just like being for the like Liiike qualifiers, right? And so then it's like going to be like, hey, we will ask, if you ask a question, then we will answer it in French, because like the most people that will be there aren't French, right? But I would say if you're doing it like on the official YouTube channel and you telling it like it's an AMA, then I would say like, hey, maybe you should also try to maybe mention it would be mainly asked tell in French, but yeah, it would be good with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a different story as well if the game was having just general global success and then they were really trying to strengthen their French community or whatnot for their local scene. But from all intents and purposes, France is super successful with the game as far as I'm understanding. Like LGS is selling out or being completely filled for pre-releases, all of that. It's very much not the state in other places. So, you know, little frustrating to see, especially as someone who's, you know, really interested and excited for these specific World Championship details and details for the qualifiers and everything. So, I mean, I'm sure there's a bunch of wonderful, helpful people who will voluntarily translate for people and otherwise forward the information around as always. But really, I'm sad that that's not coming directly from Equinox, at least on the global accessibility scale.
Yes. And this is just like at the end, and what I know by far was like a little bit more that when I ask about if someone actually showing up, like for example in the qualifier for Esne, it was like of like no, basically, or like a maybe, and yeah, it's like super sad. But hey, at the end, yeah, it should be like a little bit more clear through like the description of the video title maybe. And that would be it. And Altered Aces start to actually rating us. Super thankful. So this is amazing. And it seems like actually that the server are a little bit more stabilized right now. And hey guys, super amazing, super amazing. Yeah. They said like someone will, but we are not sure who yet. Oh, I mean, I understood it more like of they don't know if anyone will come because it's like a big drive issue. Hey, I mean, if the server are stable right now, if you want, Nebula, we can do like a one last match against each other if you want to. And if the other people want to see it on stream, because you're now being here, we actually was like, hey, maybe we should go offline of the server issues, but they're fixed now, so we can play against each other if you want. As a last final match.
I mean, I'm perfectly fine with it.
Okay. Is it also okay for you, Keelan?
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to sit here and otherwise commentate and or make fun of your plays. Always a joy for me. I guess Nebula, or sorry, Astro is going to have to look away from the stream to not see Paandy's hand, something along those lines.
That's true.
And I'll do my best to not tell him exactly what you have, Paandy, but no promises. But let's do this.
I mean, he will not watch it, right? He will not watch it. So, hey, Altered Ace Heroes, how was it? How did Altered Aces do? I know we know it. But okay, so did I send you a friend request by Astro? I did, right? Did you accept it?
I think so. Let me check my VGA. Should be in the notifications. Here it is.
Otherwise, I can just like invite you.
Perfect. Accepted.
Yeah. So guys, for you that you joined in, usually want to go offline. We talked a little bit about the AMA. The message is coming along nicely. Yeah, it's like always, it's like growing up. I mean, as we can see, Keelan guy got like a way better mustache, so...
Yeah, I'm a very buff-looking Luigi, apparently, which I do think is pretty funny. But yeah, regardless, Altered Aces, I believe Sawaki is part of AA, right? So in which case, they did have a 5-0 undefeated finish today. But otherwise,
awesome.
Neuro was the Altered Aces player who did get knocked down in that last match there. So yeah, a little unfortunate for them, but otherwise, as always, it's a pretty good showing from Altered Aces, I would say.
Yes. So let's go. I never seen Keelan guy on stream, just the avatars, yeah. But you can mention that Keelan it's look like that with the mustache. Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm just way more buff in real life.
Yeah.
I will
Okay.
apologize for my bad rating. It's only because I accidentally joined a bunch of tournaments, but like didn't participate in them.
Okay.
Because I like put them like on a schedule, but then I forgot that I couldn't do them. So.
Astro,
Okay.
that's illegal. How could
You're
you?
not watching this. You're not watching the stream, okay? For the last match, yeah? You promised me?
Yeah, I'm not watching. It's okay for me to stay in the Discord though, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Surely.
Okay. Yeah.
So one final match, guys. Sadly, no boss battle. I'm super sorry, but I'm super happy because I know tournaments and back in season like 1 or like set 1 that were completely went offline because the issue was like on round 2. I remember like the Eclipse week where almost every tournament.
Yeah, it's true. We had a week where it was go for Altered, I believe one AWOL, and my Keelan Guys bi-weekly series.
Yeah,
we all had server issues.
It was super hard. It was
Rough.
super hard, guys. But it was like totally fine. Okay, guys. Actually, last time I got super clapped with my list, and now I will actually show you my local list that I'm actually playing. So
looks like a good one.
Oh yeah, thank you so much.
I'm just gonna take a random deck, and then I'm going to take it.
Yeah, I just need to.
1 second. I chose the wrong list. 1 second. This is not the right list. Is there any way for us to restart? Sorry.
A way of restart.
Pandy, let him restart. Pandy, let him restart.
Okay.
just a ban.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
That's like the time that I queued up into you and Pandy, and I accidentally brought Subhash with only commons. I hadn't realized it was my only commons list.
I remember that.
I also remember that.
You can start Esther, by the way. You can start.
It doesn't have uniques, so.
Yeah, it's not. You can basically start, by the way.
Where's the join, and then probably I think I joined the table. I think. Oh no, never mind. You just.
Oh wait, hold on.
I reloaded.
Technical difficulties, guys. We'll be there.
Guys, I wasn't prepared for that because usually it's set up otherwise, but it's okay. It's okay. We can do it.
I have the right list this time. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Sorry about that. But okay. Yes. So I am not watching the stream or anything. I am just in the Discord call. So.
And Pandy, tell me how this works. This being a pseudo boss battle, if Astro wins, are you raffling an additional pack to all the people in the tournament, or what you doing?
This is a good question.
Of course, we want you to be living under the bridge.
I will raffle another one. But you know what? Maybe I want to play another list that I want to try out. Hold on, guys. I will try this. No, I will raffle a booster between our participants, and also super cool. I've got actually display sponsored by Man of Games, so we can actually getting more prizes for the upcoming tournaments or weeks. So I'm super excited for that. It's a set 1 display, and I think a set 1 display is almost like on the same level like a set 3 display. So
yeah, I'll solidly agree with that. Given at least the quality of uniques I've seen so far from set 3, if you're looking specifically for uniques from your box of altered cards, yeah, set 1, that's the set to go for.
So guys, I'm so sorry. I just need to do the last things, and then
don't worry about it.
And then I'm ready so that everyone knows who's actually being here. And then I need to.
Disappointed to see the deck swap here. I was very excited about that last one.
It's my other deck list. It's like my even cooler deck list, you know?
And it's in the worst faction.
No, it's a cool faction. What? You're going to do a nap? Okay, cool. See you. Thanks for watching the stream.
I unfortunately do not have the best starting hand. So.
What is this? What are those? Oh boy. This seems not good.
Again, I do not really have the best uniques.
It's okay. I also don't have like good uniques, so.
Sweet though that unique does at least does at least have 3 effects, which is pretty sweet.
I mean, I don't have unique that have 3 effects, so
it's
not bad at all.
But yeah, it has hand effects, which is fine, except it's a little expensive to play. And then so it's an okay unique. I only play it because it's pretty good from reserve. Oh, and there's the mountain stat. I would have loved to have it in there instead. Oh well.
Yeah,
It's
I guess
fine.
the reason why you play a unique like that is just because Subash can be so aggressive sometimes, right? It's just worth having that cheap early game spike stat. Pretty sweet.
So
Yep.
are you using it? Oh no. This is not
Oh,
good. This
I like
is
it.
not good.
Why
What
you
are
keep
we-
drawing cards? Stop drawing cards.
I mean, you choose to do that. Whew. Hard question, actually.
Sigismar is fair and fun, especially when they have card advantage, right?
Come on!
That's how it works.
You know, I was like, maybe I will invite some friends of
worst
mine, and
nightmare.
they're actually twins, so I hope it's okay at this point. I
They're
hope it's okay.
twins.
They're like
Oh,
twins. So I'm able to draw like 2 cards now, right? Oh yes.
Yeah.
That is cool.
You're gonna
This is
draw
my
2
worst
cards and then
nightmare.
realize they're triplets, right?
Yes, it's like it would be like super fun, huh? Okay.
Well,
All
gotta
right.
say, things looking pretty good for PAANDY so far, but they're, it's not quite over for Astro over in the Axiom hat. You never know these games. I think sometimes it can just be the early card advantage that Sigismar does get to ride out, but if they do get a sort of awkward draw against maybe more potential uniques that could come out from the Subash, you never know.
Yeah,
Things
you
could
never
turn
know.
around a little bit there.
We'll have
what
to
do
see.
I mana? Maybe.
Oh wow, you've got so many choices. What do I man? That's such a difficult choice.
I mean, you decided to let me draw, right? So I didn't do
Having
like
yeah,
anything.
it's so
I
I
true.
didn't do
Those
like
photos are
anything. I was just like sitting here with my twin buddies, just like playing a little bit.
Oh, you people.
What
Oh,
I'm
wow.
doing now? Maybe I'm just like deciding to draw another card.
Oh yay, amazing.
So invoke it. Oh, this recruit here, and then root one.
Oh,
Draw
because
one
you
card.
get to draw a card. Oh my gosh. You
Yes,
get
yes.
to-
Oh no.
Yeah, didn't you know, Astro? He was actually behind. Of course, he gets to draw a card.
So I will do this. And then I will actually just like doing this.
No,
Yes,
why?
yes.
I haven't gotten a single lead
But
yet.
you know what's
This-
like good? Every time when I start to play Sigismar, it's like reminding me that actually Sigismar was my starting off deck. And it's like, it feels like I will ride a bike or something. It's like super cool. Okay. Oh, that's like super hard right now. Now what I'm doing now?
I really feel like these Ortus Attorney openers for Sigismar are sort of like the Ouroboros Inkcaster plus Magical Training openers from Fen.
Yes.
Pretty nice, and I mean, this is the reason why Baba Yaga did get suspended. It was either that or Attorney. And yeah, it turns out if you have multiple of those card advantage engines, despite having that Baba Yaga suspension, the deck is pretty good.
Oh no.
Unfortunately, I'm not in plant, so I can't really make as many good use of that.
Why are you doing this?
Oh, come
no,
on.
No. Not today,
Oh.
not today.
Pandy, you're a criminal.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, sure. I'll let you get away with that. I'm Subash. I'm always expecting people to
Okay,
sabotage
okay,
me.
then show me what you got. Show me what you got.
I will try my best.
Okay. I mean, this seems like super unfair what you played right now.
Oh, the
Seriously?
triplets.
Ah,
No, hey, Ray told. Oh, we can talk about that.
taste of your own medicine.
Oh man. What do I do now? Let's just like.
Oh,
fuck
come
you up.
on.
I would just like fuck you up. It's okay.
Amazing. Yay. And somehow you gain the lead after that. Wait, that's a rare trooper? See, this is why I don't like Sigismar, because he somehow has both aggro and card advantage. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Play the game? I don't know. No, like actually, Sigismar is like still
well.
a good deck. It's like still a good deck.
I just
Oh,
have to deal with it, I suppose.
okay. I think Like chat, it's like a super hard decision right now, but I think I will keep those. Oh no, you're doing it again? Oh no, this is unfair. You can't do it. You will not use it directly, right?
What are you talking about?
You will not use it, right? Why are you using
Don't.
it? Hold on. Right, we can talk about it. Yes,
sure.
yes, indeed. That's good, that's good. So, let me introduce my Osma.
Oh boy.
Oh, in Target Expedition, really?
Yeah, it's like,
Wow.
I don't want to say I invented like the Blitz Sigma, but I've played with this less than 8 mana. But
Yep.
let me guess, I would do it like this and then trading it here. That's a good idea.
I do not have that many options, fortunately.
Okay, this is not good. But I still think we'll play this and then this again.
Oh, you create two. Oh, double. Okay, I see.
Yes. Okay. Okay, guys, it's working. It's working.
Yeah, it is very working.
It's working pretty well. It's working pretty well.
You know, in general, I think one of the things that has made Sigismar, I guess, recede a bit in terms of the metagame is the fact that that Baba Yaga suspension really shows off how inconsistent the deck can sometimes be without having the requisite card advantage. But given an opener with like triple Ortis Attorney by now, you don't have any of those problems. The card is so efficient, especially if you're just able to draw cards with it.
Yes.
It's, of course, still a very high power level deck. It's just not quite as consistent at guaranteed getting to the ideal late game anymore.
Yeah, this is true. And I actually manaed by a mistake. That's not good. It's actually not good. Oh no! Why I manaed it? Oh man, that was like not a good idea.
Nice little effect there, being able to both sabotage away something and remove that unique, which is sweet.
Unfortunately, it's a little bit expensive.
Mm-hmm. That it is.
Oh well.
Well. What I'm doing right now? Like a hard decision. But I think I will remove the robot.
Okay.
So that I can...
Now it all comes down to what you have in hand.
It's true.
I might just try this. Hey, okay, that's somewhat useful.
Yeah, that's brutal.
Let's see. Since I'm already lacking the plant stats. Yeah, I'll sack him.
You're doing it?
Yep.
Okay. It's fair.
Okay.
You know,
Very
somehow,
tough spot for me to be in.
yeah, this is a tough spot, but somehow I think this is looking a little bit better than I expected it to look for you a couple turns ago, at least, or a couple days ago. So there's a hope.
I mean, you can have like a comeback. So, and oh, that's
Always
cool.
me.
Just like depends on what you have like actually in hand, right?
Yep.
Oh no. This is not good. Oh. What is this? Oh, resupply. Okay. Alright. Alrighty.
Ooh.
This is a bad joke.
Oof.
Oh.
It is looking like that's going to be it for me, unfortunately.
But you know what? Do you actually know my job in real life, Nebula?
No.
Actually, I've started to create like houses, like buildings. So there's
Really?
actually
That's pretty cool.
actually there's also like a card that basically
He's lying to you.
Basically I've
lying.
built like the same house. So can you just like tell me how this house is looking like, because I want to build it like also as well in real life. So
Amazing.
no, just kidding. I'm a kindergartner.
Wait a minute, hang on a second. I still have a chance though, don't I?
You're alive.
You're alive.
alive.
I'm sure you're alive.
Hey,
We don't
I was
end
not
it like
expecting
that. We don't end it like that. We don't end it like that.
Okay. I mean, I have to double advance, but it's still possible.
It's still
Yep.
possible. Yes, it's still possible.
Pandy needing the top cards of his deck to actually be relevant cards.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Okay. I guess I will jump in here. This seems funny. Seems like pretty funny. Okay. And it's not funny. I'm sorry. Yeah, I will start off with that.
Let's see. Sure.
Okay. I mean, hold on. I think you actually got it at some point. I feel like you. I feel like you got it. Yeah, I feel like you actually got it.
You're not scouting it. Interesting.
Yes.
Oh, because then I would sabotage it. Yeah.
Actually, you got it. You got it.
The fact that Pandy can lose this game still is hilarious to me.
Really? Okay. At least that gives me some hope.
Yes, I think actually this is like a super tough decision now. But you know what? I would just like pass.
Well, I've got a unique up my sleeve.
Oh,
Hopefully
nice.
will ruin your plans.
Actually, yes. Yes, it's crazy. That's cool.
Oh, it's removal.
Guess
I
you
don't
should
really
have played
that
out that
many boosters.
license withdrawal, huh? Guess you should have gotten rid of that tech lab unit.
Yeah, I should play it
Okay.
out, but I thought like maybe what is this like all about? Super hard right now. Alright. I mean, now it's like looking actually really bad for
Yeah,
me.
it is.
Oh, this looks like super hard for me. I don't think I can win this anymore.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yes, I cannot win this anymore.
Wow. I would be very excited if that actually turns around.
Let's see. Ooh, that's a lot of stats that are going to come out
that's
from,
a lot of
from
stats.
Master here.
I think it's like, I think you got it.
Really? Okay.
Yes, you got it. Like, no joke, you got it. Yes.
I'm surprised I turned it around in the late game. That's really weird. Okay.
Yeah, you see, you got it.
Yay!
So concurrents are dead.
Shockingly.
I actually got it. That's
Subash with the comeback. That's crazy.
Hey, concurrents on dead.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you got
I was
it.
not expecting that.
You never give up. I told you, don't give up. You still got like a chance.
Hey,
See?
Yeah.
thanks to the conquering of paandyandy by Astra there, I think that
Yeah.
paandyandy is raffling a pack away to everyone in the
that's
event. So,
super sad. I'm raffling a pack right
so
now.
lucky for you guys. Good,
Yeah.
nice job, Astra. It was
Yeah, good
really
job,
fun
Astra.
commentating with you today. And
Yes.
thanks
Yep.
for having me. Astra, do you have any final words, any shout outs you want to make before we close it off for the
I mean,
evening?
honestly, it was so much fun with you guys. I actually think this last match that I played against Pandy, that's a really nice way to close out the day. I was not actually expecting it. Pandy just like asked me in the middle of the tournament, "Hey, do you want to do the boss battle?" And I was like, "Oh, what is that? I don't even know what that is." I was like, "Okay." So it's pretty fun. One question I have: do I get anything for winning the boss battle? Do I get part of the raffle, or like, do I at least join the raffle?
I mean, I can give you a booster. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I will give you a
Well,
booster.
thank you so much for
Normally,
that.
yes. Normally, the boss
Yeah.
battle adventure is chosen randomly. Things
Yeah.
being a little different because of weird server stuff today and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that player then typically earns themselves a booster for winning instead of the raffle. But you know, today's a special day, I guess. Pandy really wants to be living under the bridge with no
Yeah.
more money or altered packs to his name. So
No
so
more
that's
money
where
for
we're
me.
at.
No, he's just a nice guy. He just wants to be really nice. And honestly, don't be too nice to me because I might take advantage of it. No, I'm joking. I really thank you. I really do need cards, so I really hope I get something out of this booster pack. Inshallah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, thank you everyone for watching the stream. It was really nice to be here. I haven't been here in a week, so I thought I would be rusty or something. But honestly, Keelan guy, I feel like you and I make a really good team. It felt so natural to just bounce off of you, and it was so much fun.
I love it. I had a blast, and you're a total natural with the commentary, so that's super exciting. I'm hoping you'll join us again at some point. I definitely enjoyed myself.
I'm hoping to do at least
Sweet.
once or twice a week.
That's beautiful. Well, I'm hoping that you'll occasionally be showing up over here on the AQZ Championship Series
Yes,
broadcast.
would
That's
be super
awesome.
cool.
Yep, it was really nice
So-
to do this with you.
With that,
I'm
and
so
then
glad.
do you have anything to mention before we're going to end it?
Oh yeah, I would just say, yeah, that's I'm Killon Guy. You can find me mostly on Altered broadcasts at this point. I'm done shouting out my socials. You can find me on Discord if you want to complain at me or give me cool ideas or talk or anything. Typically very friendly and approachable if you message me on Discord with anything. So feel free if you need to. And otherwise, yeah, thanks for playing. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for having me, Pandy and Astra.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
don't have like
same
anything
here.
to add. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in into the stream and also
Yeah.
to do the cast. It was super nice to listening to you. And yeah, guys, so the next time that we will see here on the stream will be on the AQZ Blitz series happening on next Tuesday, as well as the third week already going to be uploaded on Boardgamesarena, so you can directly sign up. As always, it was a super nice tournament. It was super amazing of how many players showed up, how many of you actually being here in the stream. Always nice to have. And with that, it's like an amazing weekend. I will go for a short holiday trip to Prague. And
Ooh.
yeah, so
Hope
if
you
the
have fun.
pricings and the videos will be delayed, it's because of that. So nothing to add on that. So goodbye and see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye.
See ya.